Chapter 1246. Yes, Your Majesty. Dianwei nodded and bowed at Yi Chen's orders. He walked up to the door and lightly knocked on it a few times. After a few breaths of time, the shabby wooden door creaked open a crack, and an old woman over 50 years of age cautiously looked over. Although there hadn't been much unrest in Great Han since the Yellow Turban Rebellion, public security wasn't very good, so it was no wonder that the old woman was so cautious. Coupled with Dianwei's fierce appearance, the old woman couldn't help but be cautious. "Who are you looking for?" Hearing the old woman's question, Dianwei thought for a moment and looked back at Yichun. When Yichun saw this, he couldn't help but smile. Then he bowed to the old lady. "Elder, is Su Yuanji here?" "You are?" When the old lady heard this, she was momentarily stunned. Then, she directly looked at Yichun and asked. Yichun smiled and was about to introduce Su Shu when the old woman's eyes suddenly widened. "You, Lord Yu of Beach. You are Lord Yu of Beach." As soon as the old woman finished speaking, Yichun was slightly stunned. Then, he nodded with a smile and said, "That is this king. Is Su Yuanji home?" "Yes, yes." The old woman, or rather Su Shu's mother, hurriedly nodded and then remembered that she had only opened the door a crack. A second later, Su Shu's mother hurriedly opened the door completely, went out, and kneeled. "This humble woman, Lady Su, pays respects to Lord Yu of Beach. I didn't know that Yu of Beach had graced us with your presence. Please forgive me, Lord Beach." Yichun hastily stepped forward and helped Lady Su up. At this moment, Su Shu, who had heard the conversation outside, came out with a conflicted expression and bowed to Yichun. "This humble man, Su Shu, Su Yuanji, pays respects to Lord Yu of Beach." Su Shu was conflicted because he had just been taught a lesson by his mother, and his buttocks were still swollen. But Yichun had come, so he couldn't refuse to pay his respects. Otherwise, how could Su Shu be like this? When Yichun heard this, he glanced at Su Shu, who had a conflicted expression on his face, and couldn't help but smile. "Can this king come in and sit?" "Ah, Lord Yu of Beach, please come in, come in." When Mother Su heard this, she didn't wait for Su Shu to speak. Instead, she stepped forward and bowed, inviting Yichun into the house. When Yichun saw this, he chuckled and nodded. Then he went in. Su Shu's house was also a mud house. His family was slightly poor, but even so, his house was tidied up by Mother Su. After Yichun sat down in the main seat, Lady Su went straight to the kitchen and brought out 4 cups of poor quality tea. "Lord Yu of Beach, my humble abode is simple and crude. If there is anything Yu of Beach is lacking in hospitality, please be magnanimous and forgive me." When Yichun heard this, he took the tea from Mother Su's hand and took a sip without hesitation. This king rose from humble beginnings and has suffered all kinds of hardships. This is the least of my concerns. As soon as Yichun finished speaking, Mother Su let out a sigh of relief. Su Shu, who was standing to the side, couldn't help but brighten up. At this moment, Lady Su bowed to Yichun. "Lord Yu of Beach, this lowly woman will take her leave. If you have any instructions, please do not hesitate to speak. This lowly woman will do her best." When Yichun heard this, he chuckled and nodded. When Mother Su saw this, she bowed again and left the hall. Yichun had come to see Lady Su's son, Su Shu, so Lady Su naturally wouldn't be an eyesore. This was basic etiquette, and Lady Su wouldn't cause any trouble. After Lady Su left, Su Shu awkwardly glanced at Yichun. "Lord Yu of Beach, Shu, was just punished by my mother and is feeling a little unwell. Please forgive me for my lack of manners, Lord Yu of Beach." Su Shu's buttocks had been injured, so he couldn't sit. He could only stand, but this was unavoidably rude. Lady Su had been present earlier, so Su Shu didn't dare to say anything. Now that she was gone, he naturally had to explain himself so that Yichun wouldn't misunderstand. Yichun couldn't help but smile at Su Shu's words. "It's fine." Su Shu immediately breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, Yichun waved his right hand, and a ball of spiritual energy flew towards Su Shu. In the blink of an eye, Su Shu's injuries were healed. When Su Shu noticed this, he was first stunned, then his eyes suddenly opened wide. This, When Yi Chun heard Su Shu's words, which were full of shock, he smiled and said, "Yuanji, do you know why this prince is here?" Once Yi Chun's words left his mouth, Su Shu immediately returned to his senses. He then solemnly bowed to Yi Chun and said, "Lord Yu of Beach, this lowly one knows." When Yi Chun heard this, he nodded with a smile, then asked, "Yes." He then asked, "Then, what do you think? Lord Yu of Beach, this lowly one is naturally willing to follow you, but my mother is unwilling to leave her hometown. This lowly one, this lowly one." Su Shu sighed in melancholy and bowed. This Su Shu was just like what was recorded in history, famous for his filial piety. Yi Chun glanced at Su Shu and said, "How about this? Call your mother over and ask her a few questions. If she doesn't agree, then pretend this prince never came here." Yi Chun didn't know if Lady Su was willing to leave, but this was the hidden condition for subduing Su Shu. If it couldn't be resolved, Yi Chun could forget about subduing Su Shu. As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Su Shu nodded solemnly. At that moment, Mother Su suddenly walked in from outside. She bowed to Yi Chun and said, "I'm sorry. Lord Yu of Beach, this lowly one is willing to leave this place." Su Shu was taken aback by Lady Su's words. Su Shu had never imagined that Lady Su would suddenly come in. After a moment of shock, Su Shu came back to his senses and hastily bowed to Yi Chun. "Su Shu, Su Yuanji, are willing to follow your highness. Please take us in." The moment Su Shu spoke, the system's notification sounded. Ding! First-class historical civil officials Su Shu and Su Yuanji wish to acknowledge you as their master. Will you accept? The moment the system notification rang out, Yi Chun made his choice without hesitation. Accept. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully subduing the first-class historical civil officials Su Shu and Su Yuanji. As soon as the system's notification ended, Yi Chun got up and walked over to Su Shu and Su Mu's side, then helped them up. To be able to obtain Yuanji's help is truly this king's great fortune. Su Shu pays his respects to the Lord. Su Shu smiled and bowed respectfully when he heard this. The moment Su Shu spoke, the system's announcement sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully subduing the first-class historical civil officials Su Shu and Su Yuanji. Special reward to player Yi Chun, 10 million gold. Chapter 1247. The world announcement was repeated 3 times, instantly causing the entire world channel to explode. Damn, Yu of Gojoseon's recruitment speed is too fast. He just recruited Su Huang, and in the blink of an eye, he recruited Su Shu as well. Is that strange? Don't forget who Yu of Gojoseon is. He's the strongest player, second to none. If it were anyone else, I definitely wouldn't believe it. But this is Yu of Gojoseon. From the very beginning, he was so awesome. That makes sense. Actually, if we also had fame, official positions, and status, we could also easily recruit historical officials and historical generals. Forget it. Why don't you think about it? Aside from those few who managed to get to the rank of colonel, who else could get an official position? Guess who Yu of Gojoseon will recruit next? Damn, who the hell can guess? In any case, no matter who he recruits, all we can do is watch. Don't tell me you want to fight for it. Don't talk nonsense. I didn't mean that. The world channel was in an uproar, constantly flooding the screen. After Yi Chun took a look, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Previously, he hadn't dealt with those angry players for nothing. Now, the players were much more well-behaved, and no one dared to cause trouble. In the past, Yi Chun had obtained many good items, and he had also obtained many rewards that made the players green with envy. At that time, the players were all envious and jealous. They even attacked Yi Chun, wanted to steal everything from Yi Chun. Afterwards, Yi Chun went on a killing spree and dealt with the hidden powers. Only then did the players become more well-behaved. Otherwise, there would definitely be players mocking Yi Chun in the world channel like before, saying things like jealousy and jealousy. Thinking up to this point, Yi Chun looked at Su Shu and said, "Pack up. You and your mother will head to Reincarnation Immortal City." Reincarnation. Immortal. Immortal city? Su Shu was stunned when he heard this. Then he asked in confusion. When Yi Chun heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, "That's right. It's the reincarnation immortal city. That's my foundation. Not only can your mother extend her lifespan, but she can also break through the mortal evolution state and obtain a longer lifespan. Of course, if everything goes well, it's not impossible for your mother to live forever." As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Su Shu's eyes suddenly lit up. Then he directly bowed to Yi Chun and said loudly, "Su Shu, I pledge my life to follow the Lord. If I violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy me." As soon as Su Shu finished speaking, Mother Su turned to Yi Chun and bowed, her face filled with excitement. "This humble woman, Su Shu, thanks you, Lord Beach, for your generosity. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun. Su Shu's loyalty +10, promoted to die loyal." When the system ended, Yi Chun raised his eyebrows and helped Mother Su and Su Shu up. "UNG, serve me well. Don't disappoint me." As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Su Shu bowed without hesitation. "Yes, my lord." When Yi Chun heard this, he chuckled and nodded. Then, with a thought, the space around him instantly distorted. After glancing at the distorted space, Yi Chun looked straight at Su Shu and said, "Take your mother and daughter with you to the reincarnation immortal city. Take your mother with you and go straight to the reincarnation immortal city. Once you're there, find Mi Zhu and Mi Zizhong and ask him to arrange a place for you." "Yes, my lord." When Su Shu saw Yi Chun's extraordinary ability, he hurriedly bowed and said this. When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled with tears in his eyes. "Go." When Su Shu heard this, he bowed again. Then he held Mother Su's hand and walked toward the distorted space. In a breath's time, they disappeared without a trace. Luoyang, Great General He Jin's residence. A drawn-out voice suddenly rang out. "Reporting to the Great General, the Empress Dowager wants you to enter the palace immediately." He Jin, who was sitting in the main hall, was taken aback when he heard this. He looked at the messenger and asked, "The Empress Dowager wants me to enter the palace immediately? Do you know why?" Reporting to the Great General, the Empress Dowager's palace maid did not tell this general the reason. She only urged this general to inform the Great General as soon as possible so that you can enter the palace. He Jin was taken aback when he heard this. At this moment, Yuan Shao, who was a guest at the He residence, suddenly looked at He Jin and said, "Great General, I'm afraid this is a trap." "A trap? Yuan Binshu, are you saying that the Empress Dowager wants to harm me?" He Jin's expression darkened when he heard this. Yuan Shao shook his head and said, "Great General, the Empress Dowager should be in mourning." "General, the Empress Dowager should be observing mourning at this time. Why did she summon you in such a hurry? It must be something urgent. Otherwise, the Empress Dowager would not be in such a hurry," He Jin said. Then he looked at the palace maid at the door and said, "Prepare a horse. Quickly prepare a horse. I want to enter the palace." "Yes, Great General." The palace maid at the door hurriedly bowed when she heard this. Yuan Shao frowned when he saw this. He opened his mouth, but could not say anything. In a remote hall in the palace. "How is it? Is it done?" Zhang Rang looked at the young eunuch who had just entered and asked. The young eunuch quickly bowed and said, "The Great General, the palace made by the Empress Dowager's side has already gone to the He residence. She should be back soon." "Good." Zhang Rang's eyes widened when he heard this. He then said sharply, "Do a clean job. Don't leave any evidence behind." "Yes." When the eunuch heard this, he hurriedly bowed and saluted. After he finished speaking, he hurriedly left the hall. At this moment, the other great general eunuchs looked at each other and said in unison, "It's time to act. It's time for us to act. This time, we can't let that bastard He Jin live." "Yes." Changshi County, Su Shu's old residence. Looking at the darkening sky, Yi Chun looked at Guo Jia and Dianwei and said, "I'm sorry. Let's go to Western Liang as guests." Guo Jia was stunned by Yi Chun's words. He then looked at Yi Chun and asked, Your Highness, are we going to see Ma Teng and Ma Shoucheng? That's right, it's him. If we can deal with him, our trip this time will be considered complete. When Yichen heard this, he chuckled and nodded before opening his mouth to speak. Guo Jia was stunned again and then asked, Your Highness, is there anyone who can deal with you? Your Highness, there are many talented people in the world. Why do you? There are indeed many talented people. Unfortunately, it's not that they can't catch my eye, it's that they've already made their choice. Such people will only end up as dirt in the end. There's no need to care about them. Yichen smiled and said. Hearing this, Guojia nodded, then bowed and said, I'm sorry. Your Highness, Jia is very fortunate to have made my choice from the start. Yichen laughed when he heard this. He patted Guojia's shoulder and said, Don't worry. Kid, don't tell me you're still thinking about how I would have killed you if you hadn't pledged your allegiance? Guojia's face stiffened and then he quickly bowed. Your Highness, Jia is loyal to you. I have no such thoughts. Your Highness, please understand. You brat, I only said a few words to you, yet you took them seriously. Your master, I, was merely sighing with emotion. Furthermore, how could I possibly not know of your loyalty? Hearing those words, Yicheng glared at Guojia and then spoke. Chapter 1248. As soon as Yichen finished speaking, Guojia was stunned. Then, he felt warmth in his heart. In the next second, Guojia bowed seriously. Jia, thank you for your trust, my lord. When Yichen heard this, he couldn't help but smile. Then, he said, Don't kid yourself. You brat, don't let your imagination run wild. I, your lord, will not suspect you. When Guojia heard this, he smiled and bowed. My lord, Jia will remember this. When Yichen heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, All right, that's enough. It's time for us to go to Western Liang. When Yichen finished speaking, he waved his right hand. The space beside him suddenly became distorted. After glancing at the distorted space, Yichen stepped into it and disappeared. When Guojia and Dianwei saw this, they hurriedly followed and also disappeared without a trace. In Western Liang, inside Ma Teng's tent, when Ma Teng heard his subordinate's report, his face suddenly darkened. Then he shouted in a deep voice, When did this happen? When the subordinate who came to report heard this, he hurriedly bowed and said, General, an hour ago, Han Sui sent out his troops and stole the grain from the official storehouse. Then he returned to his camp. As soon as Ma Teng's subordinate who had come to report said this, Ma Chao's eyes lit up with rage. Father, Han Sui is a traitor. He should be killed. When Ma Chao's second brother, Ma Xiao, heard this, he looked at Ma Teng and bowed. Father, we clearly agreed that we would attract the soldiers and they would steal the grain. Then they would share half of it with us. Now that he has taken all the grain, it's obvious that he doesn't want to share it with us. When Ma Dai heard this, he bowed and said with a gloomy face, Uncle, Han Sui has ulterior motives. We must guard against him. When Ma Chao's third brother, Ma Tai, heard this, he nodded seriously and then bowed to Ma Teng. Father, we can't wait for Han Sui to make trouble. We must act as soon as possible. Otherwise, the army will run out of grain in 3 days. When Ma Teng, who was sitting in the main seat, heard this, his face became even more gloomy. He never thought that Han Sui, whom he had worked with for a long time, would actually do such a thing. Just as Ma Teng was thinking about how to solve this problem, the space in the tent suddenly distorted. Then, a young man stepped out and appeared in the tent. At this moment, Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai were all stunned. It wasn't normal for a person to appear out of nowhere. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in a daze. Just as Ma Teng and his family were in a daze, a man dressed like a scholar and a ferocious-looking man walked out of the distorted space. Seeing this, Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai immediately regained their senses and looked directly at the young man who had appeared first. They had no choice but to look. The young man who appeared first was obviously the one with the highest status. The two people who appeared last were his attendants. A second after Ma Teng and his family locked their gazes on the young man, Ma Chao suddenly exclaimed in surprise. You, Lord Yu of Beach. It's Lord Yu of Beach. When Ma Chao finished speaking, Ma Tung, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai's bodies all stiffened. They couldn't help but stiffen. After all, their current status was that of a rebel. Although they had no choice but to rebel, their status as a rebel was undeniable. There was no way for them to quibble about it. Of course, this wasn't important. What was important was that Prince Yu of Han Yichun had come to their tent. One was an official, and the other was a rebel. How could they remain calm? Of course, this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that this Prince Yu of Han Yichun wasn't an ordinary prince. He was a godlike commander who killed people like flies. He had never been defeated and was known as the war god of the Great Han. Facing such an existence, how could Ma Tung and his family not feel pressured? After being stunned for a short while, Ma Tung hurriedly left the main seat and came to Yichun. He bowed and said, Sinner Ma Tung pays respect to you of Beach. When Ma Tung finished speaking, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai quickly regained their senses and hurriedly bowed to Yichun. Sinner Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai pays respect to you of Beach. When Yichun heard this, he glanced at Ma Tung and his family and said with a smile, Relax. I'm here as a guest. When Yichun finished speaking, Ma Tung, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai were all stunned. Their first reaction when they saw Yichun wasn't that he was here as a guest, but that Yichun was here to destroy them. After all, they were now traitors. Yichun, the ghost king of the Great Han dynasty, had 10,000 reasons to kill them. But that wasn't the case at all. After a brief moment of stupefaction, Ma Tung was the first to regain his senses and hastily bowed. Lord Yu of Beach, please take a seat. Ma Tung was a little confused by Yichun's guest. Although he didn't understand, Ma Tung was more inclined to believe that Yichun didn't have any killing intent. If Yichun did have killing intent, then today would be the day that the Ma clan was exterminated. Ma Tung was very certain of this. When Yichun heard this, he chuckled and nodded. Then he walked straight to the main seat in the tent and sat down. When Ma Tung saw this, he looked at Yichun and hesitated for a moment before bowing. Lord Yu of Beach, Tung, rebelled against the Great Han because the imperial court didn't provide relief during the famine, allowing countless people to starve to death and even eat their children. Tung. When Ma Tung reached this point, he immediately stopped. At this moment, Yichun took a glance at Ma Tung. Ma Tung, have you ever bullied the common people? Tung, I swear to the heavens that I have never done such a thing. When Ma Tung heard this, he didn't hesitate to raise 3 fingers and speak firmly. When Yichun heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, That's right. Since you haven't done it, why are you so afraid? When Ma Tung heard this, he was stunned. On the other hand, Ma Chao's eyes lit up. It was clear that Ma Chao had thought of something that made him excited. At this moment, Ma Xiao's eyes suddenly widened, and then he shouted in surprise, Brother, Father, you of Beach have come to recruit? No, to subdue us. When Ma Tung heard this, his eyes widened, and he saw the smile on Yichun's face. In the next second, Ma Tung tidied up his clothes with a serious expression. Then, he knelt down on one knee and bowed to Yichun. Ma Tung is willing to follow the Lord. Please take me in. The moment Ma Tung finished speaking, a system notification rang out. Ding! A first-rate historical general, Ma Tung, wishes to recognize you as his master. Will you accept? Chapter 1249. As soon as the system notification ended, Yichun smiled and made his choice without hesitation. Accept. Ding. Congratulations to player Yichun for successfully subduing Ma Tung, a first-rate historical general. As soon as the system notification ended, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai stepped forward and bowed to Yichun in a loud voice. Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai is willing to follow my lord. Please take me in, my lord. Ding. The super first-rate historical general Ma Chao, the first-rate historical generals Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai wish to recognize you as their master. Do you accept? As soon as the system notification ended, Yi Chun made his choice again. Accept. Ding. Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully subduing Ma Chao, the first-rate historical generals Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai. As soon as the system notification ended, Yi Chun left his seat and came to Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai. He helped them up one by one. It is my great fortune to have you as my followers. Thank you for your praise, my lord. We pledge our lives to follow you, my lord. Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai's eyes lit up when they heard this. They hurriedly bowed to Yi Chun. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun, Ma Teng's loyalty +10. You have advanced to diehard fan. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun, Ma Chao's loyalty +10. You have advanced to diehard fan. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun, Ma Xiao's loyalty +10. You have advanced to diehard fan. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun, Ma Tai's loyalty +10. You have advanced to diehard fan. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun, Ma Dai's loyalty +10. You have advanced to diehard fan. Yi Chun was Prince Yu of Han, the great general of agile cavalry, the governor of Yuzhou province, who had made illustrious military achievements and was unrivaled. In the hearts of Ma Teng and his family, Yi Chun was a godlike existence. They never thought that Prince Yu of Han, Yi Chun, would personally come to recruit them. But the truth was that Yi Chun had really come. Moreover, he had even thrown out an olive branch to recruit them. On the other hand, this was undoubtedly an enormous pleasant surprise to Ma Teng's family that thought that Yi Chun might have come to annihilate the Ma clan. No one wanted to die, and Ma Teng's family was no exception. If not for the fact that they had no other choice, why would they choose to rebel against the great Han dynasty? Of course, this wasn't important. What was important was that after they recognized him as their master, Yi Chun, Prince Yu of Han's words revealed the importance he attached to the Ma clan. And for Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai, who were still uneasy after recognizing him as their master, this was a heart-strengthening shot. One had to know that this was the unparalleled person in the world, Yi Yu of Gojoseon, who was regarded highly by Yi Chun. As long as they were loyal to Yi Chun, they would be able to obtain Yi Chun's 100% trust. They wouldn't have to worry about being looked down upon, marginalized, or not being put in an important position. It was precisely because Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai all saw this point that they unhesitatingly offered their loyalty. The moment the system's notification rang out, Yi Chun couldn't help but smirk. Not bad, not bad. Ma Teng's entire family is loyal. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, a world announcement suddenly rang out. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully subduing the first-rate historical general, Ma Teng. Due to his special status, player Yi Chun is rewarded with innate attribute points X10, gold X10, 000,000. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for being the 10th person to obtain the loyalty of the first-rate historical general, Ma Chao. Player Yi Chun is rewarded with 10 million gold. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully obtaining the loyalty of the first-rate historical general, Ma Xiao. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully obtaining the loyalty of the first-rate historical general, Ma Tai. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully obtaining the loyalty of the first-rate historical general, Ma Dai. The world announcement rang out 3 times in a row, instantly causing the entire world announcement to explode. Holy shit! Holy shit! Yi Yu of Gojoseon just accepted Su Shu, and in the blink of an eye, he accepted Ma Teng's entire family? Isn't this too abnormal? I also feel that it's abnormal. Ma Teng is one of the 18 vassals not long after. How could he have been subdued by Yi Yu of Gojoseon? And so quickly? Calm down, calm down. Think about Sun Jian's family. You should know that there's nothing in this world that Yi Yu of Gojoseon can't do. That shouldn't be the case. Sun Jian's family only has 3 people, but Ma Teng's family has 5. Moreover, one of them is a first-rate general, while the other 4 are first-rate generals. Even if Yi Yu of Gojoseon is awesome, it's impossible for him to subdue them so quickly. It hasn't even been 3 minutes. What's so strange about this? Don't forget who Yi Yu of Gojoseon is. He's a man who even dared to fight the god of light. He's ridiculously fierce. I think so too. Although Ma Teng, Ma Chao, and Ma Dai are famous generals in history, they're facing Yi Yu of Gojoseon. In front of Yi Yu of Gojoseon, if they don't submit, they will die. Do you think they would choose to die? Don't joke around. All right, what you said makes sense. However, does Yi Yu of Gojoseon intend to subdue all 18 feudal lords? Don't talk nonsense. If Yi Yu of Gojoseon wants to subdue all 18 feudal lords, he will have to change history. Moreover, if Yi Yu of Gojoseon had such plans, he wouldn't have killed Liu Bei and Gong Sunzan in the beginning. It doesn't matter who Yi Yu of Gojoseon subdues. In any case, I have already subdued 2 bandits and brought them to the real world. Damn, why are you so lucky? Why haven't I subdued you yet? Are you stupid? Subdue them first, then use all sorts of methods, such as coercion and bribery. Basically, you will succeed. However, I want to ask, what's with the loyalty? How come one of the 2 bandits I subdued has a loyalty of 60 and a loyalty of 30? I'm not sure. I haven't subdued any natives in the game world. You'll have to ask someone else. You don't know? Let me tell you. According to my observations, the loyalty is related to how the natives do things. A loyalty of 60 shouldn't reject most orders. A loyalty of 60 shouldn't be able to rebel. Therefore, it is necessary to raise the natives' loyalty as much as possible. Damn, I've learned something. I have to go offline quickly and think of a way to raise their loyalty. Otherwise, the one with a loyalty of 30 might be unfavorable to me. Damn, I have to go offline too. That subordinate of mine only has a loyalty of 59. The world channel was abuzz with activity. Yichen looked at it and curled his lips in disdain. Loyalty wasn't that easy to raise, especially those with a loyalty of 60 and below. They could betray at any time. It probably wouldn't be long before there would be a large number of master-killing incidents in the real world. In Yi Chen's previous life, the natives he brought to the real world often betrayed and attacked their masters. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have thought so. This couldn't be blamed on the natives. It was the player's fault. Very few people treated the natives as humans. Otherwise, after subduing the natives, their loyalty wouldn't be lower than 60 no matter how bad it was. Thinking of this, Yi Chen looked directly at Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai. He said, "Quickly gather your families and follow me to the reincarnation immortal city." Chapter 1250. As Yi Chen spoke, Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai all turned to Yi Chen and bowed. "Yes, Master." Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai bowed once more and then left the tent. Guojia, who had followed Yi Chen here, glanced at the departing Ma Teng and his family, then turned to Yi Chen and bowed. "Master, Sun Jian and Sun Wentai have many soldiers under their command, as do Ma Teng and Ma Shouqing. Why does Master not take these soldiers for your own use?" "Feng Xiao, it's not that your master doesn't want to take them, but that I can't." Yi Chen faintly smiled and then patted Guojia on the shoulder. Guojia was stunned. At this moment, Yi Chen continued, "Don't worry. If Sun Jian and Ma Teng don't submit to me, they will become vassals in the future. Let's not talk about how long they can survive for now, but this result is certain. If this king subdues all the soldiers under their command, this world will have 2 fewer vassals that can participate in chaotic times. This is not desirable." The history of the Great Han was the Dong Zhuo Rebellion. The vassals sought Dong. The vassals fought for supremacy, and then the world was divided into 3. In this process, Sun Jian and Ma Teng played the role of members of the 18 vassals. After the Dongjua rebellion began, when Cao Cao issued a decree calling for the heroes of the world to suppress Dongjua, they would automatically become the vassals of the 18 vassals and work together to suppress Dongjua. If the two of them disappeared, then the vassals' play would most likely be disrupted. Once this grand show was disrupted, it would be hard to predict whether the dukedom contest that Yi Chun wanted would still be able to take place. It could be said that by subduing Sun Jian and Ma Teng, Yi Chun was disrupting the course of history. The effects of this matter could be large or small. If something went wrong, the vassal war might completely disappear. Yi Chun didn't want to see such a situation. After all, Yi Chun's opportunity to make his move was during the struggle for hegemony. Of course, this kind of situation was not unavoidable. As long as Yi Chun kept Sun Jian and Ma Teng's army, it would be fine. To be more precise, with these two armies present, even if Sun Jian and Ma Teng were unable to become vassals of the 18 kingdoms because they had acknowledged Yi Chun as their master, it would be fine, because there would be a replacement. It was also for this reason that Yi Chun had given up on Sun Jian and Ma Teng's army. Furthermore, Yi Chun did not lack soldiers. If Yi Chun wanted more soldiers, he could just use the 100 unused heaven-grade recruitment orders. As long as Yi Chun used the 100 heaven-grade orders, he would be able to recruit 10 million C-grade soldiers. That was not all. With the support of the reincarnation Immortal City, these soldiers would become S-class soldiers at the very least. Such an existence was much more impressive than Sun Jian and Ma Teng's subordinates. Hence, there was no need for Yi Chun to purposely subdue Ma Teng and Sun Jian's army. Otherwise, the losses would outweigh the gains. As for Yi Chun, he had not used the 100 heaven-grade recruitment orders because Yi Chun did not have enough subordinates to lead troops previously. Otherwise, Yi Chun would have used the 100 heaven-grade recruitment orders long ago. Of course, this was in the past. Now, Yi Chun could use them. This was because the upper limit of the Samsara Legion had been raised to 10 million by Yi Chun. In addition, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion had all advanced to the mortal evolution state. They were fully capable of being captains. Yi Chun's Samsara Legion could be expanded to 6 million or even 10 million. Of course, Yi Chun could only expand the Samsara Legion to 6 million at most. Yi Chun would distribute the remaining 4 million to the various defense organizations under his command. After all, the Samsara Legion soldiers were not the only ones who had advanced to the mortal evolution state. The other soldiers had also advanced to the mortal evolution state. It would not be a problem for such an existence to be a centurion or chiliarch. As soon as Yi Chun's words fell, Guo Jia was stunned. Then, he realized what Yi Chun meant. After being filled with emotions, Guo Jia bowed solemnly and said, "My lord is wise." When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled and said, "When we return, we will increase the number of reinforcements. When we return, the reincarnation Immortal City will send reinforcements. At that time, Feng Xiao will draft a booklet according to the military merits and give it to me." Yi Chun wanted to expand the army, but Yi Chun would not casually promote the positions of his soldiers. Even if he wanted to promote them, there had to be a reason, and military merit was the best way to judge it. "Yes, my lord. My lord." Guo Jia's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he hurriedly bowed. If Samsara Immortal City wanted to increase the number of soldiers, they would be expanding their military strength. As the military advisor, Guo Jia naturally liked to see this. After all, the more soldiers there were in Samsara Immortal City, the stronger the city's combat power would be. As a loyal follower of Yi Chun, how could Guo Jia not like to see Samsara Immortal City grow stronger? As soon as Guo Jia said this, Dianwei suddenly thought of something. He quickly looked at Yi Chun and bowed. "My lord, I want to return to the Samsara Legion." When Yi Chun heard this, he was slightly stunned. Then, he looked at Dianwei and asked, "Dianwei, have you thought about it?" Letting Dianwei take charge of an army was to nurture both Dianwei and Dianwei. If Dianwei returned to the Samsara Legion, he could continue to be the commander of the Samsara Legion. However, the problem was that his position would be fixed forever. There was no possibility of promotion. When Dian Wei heard Yi Chen's question, he nodded without hesitation and bowed. My lord, I was the commander of your personal guard from the start. My lord didn't have many generals at that time, so I went to lead them. Now that you have many generals under your command, I want to return to the Samsara Legion and continue to be your personal guard. When Yi Chen heard Dian Wei's words, he couldn't help but feel warmth in his heart. Then, he patted Dian Wei's shoulder heavily and said, That's fine. Come back if you want to. When you return, you can continue to be the commander of my personal guards. When Dian Wei heard this, he was overjoyed. Then, he knelt down on one knee with a bang. Thank you, my lord. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but smile. Then, he helped Dian Wei up. At this moment, Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai brought a group of women into the tent. Greetings, my lord. You of Beach. When Ma Teng's family greeted him, Yi Chen nodded with a smile. Then, he looked at Ma Teng and asked, Have you all come? You're all here? My lord, my family is all here. When Ma Teng heard this, he hurriedly bowed and said. When Yi Chen heard this, he smiled slightly. Then, he waved his right hand, and the space in the tent was instantly distorted. After glancing at the distorted space, Yi Chen directly said, Go straight in. You can reach the reincarnation immortal city directly. Chapter 12:51. After Yi Chen finished speaking, he directly stepped into the distorted space and disappeared. Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Dai, and the others were stunned. At this moment, Guijia, who had yet to leave, smiled and cupped his fists. Brother Shocheng, this is not a good place to stay. Please. Guijia's words jolted Ma Teng out of his daze. He hurriedly returned the salute. Brother Fengxiao, please excuse us. We'll set off now. Ma Teng looked at Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, Ma Dai, and the women. Don't delay. Let's set off now. As soon as Ma Teng finished speaking, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, Ma Dai, and the group of women immediately came back to their senses and hurriedly walked towards the distorted space. Before long, Ma Teng's family, Guijia, and Dian Wei disappeared. Reincarnation Immortal City, main hall of the city governor's mansion. Ma Teng's family, Guijia, and Dian Wei walked out of the twisted space one after another and appeared in this place. Yi Chen, who was the first to return, glanced at Ma Teng's family and said, This is Reincarnation Immortal City. You'll meet Mi Zhu and Mi Zizhong later to confirm your residence. After that, you'll head to the drill ground. Yes, my lord. When Ma Teng heard this, he immediately recovered from the shock of seeing the white clouds floating outside the door. He then hurriedly bowed and said. Yi Chen nodded with a smile. He then looked at Guijia and said, Fengxiao, bring the general's merit book to the drill ground. Yes, my lord. Guijia nodded and bowed. Yi Chen smiled faintly when he heard Guijia's words. Then, he rose into the air. Dian Wei followed closely behind and flew toward the drill ground with Yi Chen. Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, Ma Dai, and Ma Teng's family members widened their eyes in shock. Flying in the air was not a power that mortals could control. But now what did they see? Their lord, Yi Chen, and his general, Dian Wei, were both flying. How could they not be surprised? How could they not be shocked? Brother Shocheng, the lord needs the military merit book. Zhao will go first. Guijia, who had yet to leave, saw the shocked expressions of Ma Teng and his family. He smiled and cupped his fists. Hearing this, Ma Teng immediately came back to his senses. He hurriedly cupped his fists and returned the greeting. Chancellor Guo, please. Hearing this, Guijia nodded with a smile and walked out of the door. After Guijia left, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai couldn't remain calm. Father, the Lord can fly. Father, is the Lord an immortal? The most important thing is that not only can my lord fly, General Dian Wei can also fly. Uncle, I'm afraid that our Ma family's ancestral graves are emitting smoke. Hearing this, Ma Teng took a deep breath and exhaled deeply. In the next second, Ma Teng shouted with a serious face. Don't make a ruckus and don't talk about the Lord and his generals. Remember, from now on, you all have to be honest and keep your arrogance. In front of the Lord, I'm afraid that you all don't even have the right to carry the shoes of his soldiers. Father, is it that serious? Ma Chao was slightly stunned and asked after hearing Ma Teng's words. Hearing this, Ma Teng nodded with certainty and said, "It's more serious than that. It will only be more serious than this. Just now, I specially observed Chancellor Gua and discovered that he faintly exuded an extremely strong aura as he walked. With such an existence, all of us combined would not be a match for him. Therefore, I'm afraid that the Lord's soldiers will not be that simple." Chancellor Gua, but he's a scholar, this. Ma Xiao was stunned and said in shock. Hearing this, Ma Teng glared at Ma Xiao and said, "Shut up. You brothers grew up at the border since young, so your temperaments are somewhat mischievous and also somewhat arrogant. Remember this, being able to follow the Lord is our Ma clan's greatest fortune. You all must not be impetuous on normal days. Otherwise, if you make the Lord unhappy, there's no need for the Lord to act. I'll personally break your dog legs and expel you from the Ma clan." Hearing Ma Teng's harsh words, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai were all stunned and then hurriedly bowed and said, "Yes, Father, Uncle." Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai were still young and arrogant. If they were still in Western Liang, it wouldn't be a big deal. But here, they were not in Western Liang, but in Reincarnation Immortal City. If they acted recklessly in the past, they would most likely cause trouble and make Yi Chun unhappy. It was because of this that Ma Teng sternly warned Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai to prevent them from throwing a tantrum and causing trouble. Of course, this was only Ma Teng's thought. In reality, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai, who were loyal to Yi Chun, would not act recklessly in the past. Hearing this, Ma Teng nodded and said, "Let's go and see Zizhong. Let's confirm our residence as soon as possible and then go to the drill ground. We can't let the Lord wait for too long." "Yes, Father, Uncle." Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai hurriedly bowed and said. Hearing this, Ma Teng nodded and found the maid at the door. After asking for Mi Zhu's location, he quickly left the Castellan's mansion with his family. When Yi Chun arrived at the drill ground of Reincarnation Immortal City, the soldiers who were training in the drill ground stopped and knelt on one knee in front of Yi Chun. "Greetings, Lord." The 2,410,000 soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City shouted loudly, their voices shaking the sky. Hearing this, Yi Chun chuckled and nodded. Then, with a thought, 100 heaven-rank soldier recruitment tokens appeared in his hand. Glancing at the 100 heaven-rank soldier recruitment tokens floating in front of him, Yi Chun chose to use them without hesitation. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully using Soldier Recruitment Token, Heaven Rank. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully using Soldier Recruitment Token, Heaven Rank. The system beeped continuously for 100 times. Then, a dazzling white light appeared in the drill ground. When the dazzling white light dissipated, huge square formations appeared in the drill ground one after another. Looking over, the number of soldiers in the square formation was exactly 10 million, no more, no less. Yi Chun glanced at the dumbfounded soldiers who had just appeared and faintly smiled as he called out, "What are you waiting for? I am you of Beach. Are you willing to become my soldiers and pledge your loyalty to me?" Chapter 1252. Upon hearing Yi Chun's words, the 10 million soldiers who had just appeared on the drill ground of the Reincarnation Immortal City were all stunned. Then they opened their eyes wide. They were summoned by the military recruitment order and knew that they would become soldiers of someone. However, they did not expect that they would become soldiers of Prince Yu of Han. After a short moment of confusion, the 10 million soldiers who had just appeared on the drill ground of the Reincarnation Immortal City smiled ecstatically. They had heard all kinds of rumors about Prince Yu of Han. They even dreamed of joining the Reincarnation Immortal City and becoming soldiers of Yu of Beach and Yi Chun. Now, They had really become soldiers of Prince Yu of Han and Yi Chun. How could they not be excited? How could they not be excited? After coming to their senses, the 10 million soldiers who had been summoned by the military recruitment order knelt down on one knee. Then they cupped their fists and bowed to Yi Chun loudly. "We pledge our lives to follow you, my lord." The 10 million soldiers shouted at the top of their lungs. Their shouts shook the sky, and the clouds surged. Upon hearing this, Yi Chun nodded with satisfaction. Then he shouted, "Good. From now on, you are the soldiers of the reincarnation immortal city and my soldiers." "Yes, my lord." Upon hearing this, the 10 million soldiers shouted in unison. At this moment, Guo Jia came to the drill ground and raised the military merit book high in the air. Upon seeing this, Yi Chun raised his right hand and made a grabbing motion in the void. Whoosh! The military merit book flew toward Yi Chun and was caught by Yi Chun. After taking a look at the military merit book in his hand, Yi Chun looked at Dian Wei beside him and said, "Dian Wei, go and call Zilong and Yinchang here." "Yes, my lord." Upon hearing this, Dian Wei hurriedly bowed and left the drill ground. Not long after, Zhao Yun, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Zhong, Li Yuanba, Gan Ning, Gao Shun, Zhang Liao, and the other generals, as well as Ma Teng, Ma Chao, Ma Xiao, Ma Tai, and Ma Dai, who had just joined the reincarnation immortal city, arrived at the drill ground. When everyone arrived at the drill ground's high platform, they all stopped and bowed towards Yi Chun in a loud voice. "Greetings, my lord." Upon hearing this, Yi Chun nodded his head and said, "Today, reincarnation immortal city is expanding. Today, the reincarnation immortal city is expanding its army. After I expand the reincarnation legion, the remaining soldiers will be divided equally among you." "Yes, my lord." Upon hearing this, Zhao Yun, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Zhong, Li Yuanba, Gao Shun, Zhang Liao, Sun Jian, and the other generals' eyes lit up. They hurriedly bowed and greeted loudly. When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled slightly. Then he looked directly at the 10 million recruits in the drill ground and shouted, "Those with grade SSS aptitude, step forward." The Samsara Legion needed to expand, but Yi Chun wouldn't expand recklessly. Grade SSS aptitude was Yi Chun's minimum requirement. If they couldn't even meet this condition, Yi Chun wouldn't accept them into the Samsara Legion. The moment Yi Chun finished speaking, the 10 million soldiers who had been summoned to the drill ground by the Heaven Rank recruitment order were all stunned. Then, they saw that most of the soldiers revealed disappointed expressions. It was obvious that these soldiers were disappointed because their aptitude didn't reach grade SSS. They couldn't be blamed. After all, the Samsara Legion's name had already spread throughout the Great Han Dynasty. As long as one was a citizen of the Great Han Dynasty, there was not a single person who did not know that the Samsara Legion was the personal guard of the Ghost King, Yi Chun. Basically, any citizen of the Great Han Dynasty who wanted to be Yi Chun's soldiers wanted to join the Samsara army the most. Otherwise, these soldiers who didn't meet the requirements wouldn't be so disappointed. While some were disappointed, there were naturally some who were excited. Those soldiers with grade SSS aptitude stepped forward excitedly and quietly waited for Yi Chun's orders. Yi Chun naturally saw the reaction of the soldiers. He smiled and shouted, "There is still a chance for you to join the Samsara Legion. It's not that you don't have the chance to join the Samsara army. As long as you work hard, train hard, and obtain enough battle merits, even if your aptitude is lacking, you can still join the Samsara army." Once Yi Chun finished speaking, the eyes of the soldiers who were disappointed because their aptitudes didn't reach the standard, as well as the soldiers of the various legions who had followed Yi Chun to the battlefield, lit up. It was obvious that Yi Chun's words had stimulated them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be like this. Yi Chun glanced at the excited soldiers. Then, with a thought, the bodies of the 3,213,218 soldiers with grade SSS aptitude suddenly glowed with a bright red light. At the same time, the 510,000 Samsara Legion veterans who weren't far away all had solemn expressions. Then they saw a berserk battle intent and an extremely dense smell of blood emitting from their bodies. Then they charged straight at the recruits who were glowing with red light. After a few breaths, the soldiers, who were originally full of the aura of recruits, suddenly emitted an aura of iron and blood. Then, the aura of the recruits became stronger and stronger. Soon, the aura of the recruits was completely dispersed. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi-chun. The expansion of the Samsara Legion has been completed. Once the system's notification ended, Yi-chun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He didn't expect that the expansion of the Samsara Legion could directly turn recruits into veterans. Not bad. Not bad. Thinking of this, Yi-chun immediately looked at the soldiers under him and shouted, "Previously, when you follow me to battle, your military merits were all recorded in this book. Now, I want to give those with outstanding military merits a chance to join the Samsara Legion. You can reject or accept. I won't interfere." Once Yi-chun finished speaking, the eyes of the veterans from Reincarnation Immortal City lit up. At this moment, Yi-chun flipped open the book and read out the names. Zhang Dashan, Huang Erga, Wang. Every time Yi-chun read out a name, a soldier would step forward. When the last name was read out, all the soldiers stood forward. Yi-chun counted all the soldiers and was stunned. These soldiers, together with the original veterans of the Samsara Legion and the newly recruited recruits, added up to a total of 4 million. Damn, this number is pretty neat. Thinking of this, Yi-chun immediately looked at the soldiers who stepped forward after their names were read out and asked, "Are you willing to join the Samsara Legion?" "My lord, we are willing." When the veterans whose names were read out by Yi-chun heard this, they bowed and saluted loudly without hesitation. When Yi-chun heard this, he chuckled and nodded. Then, with a thought, he added these soldiers to the Samsara Legion. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi-chun. The expansion of the Samsara Legion has been completed. Number of soldiers, 4 million. Once the system notification ended, Yi-chun immediately looked at the veterans of the Samsara Legion and said, "Rewards are rewarded. Meritorious service will be rewarded, and mistakes will be punished. All of you have followed this king in a battle, and have made outstanding contributions in battle." At this point, Yi-chun looked at the veterans of the Samsara Legion and those who had just joined the Samsara Legion. Then he shouted, "Zhang Dainyu, your military merits are outstanding. You are promoted from captain to captain." Chapter 1253. As soon as Yi-chun finished speaking, Captain Zhang Dainyu's eyes lit up, and he walked out of the Samsara Legion's formation. When he came to the front of the formation, Zhang Dainyu knelt down on one knee, without hesitation, and cupped his hands together. Zhang Dainyu thanks the Lord for his bestowal. When Yi-chun heard Zhang Dainyu's words, he nodded with a smile and said, "You were the first to follow me. You were the first to follow me. Cultivate well, and don't disappoint me." "Yes, Lord." When Zhang Dainyu heard this, his face turned solemn, and he bowed without hesitation. When Yi-chun heard this, he nodded with satisfaction. He then looked at the veterans of the Samsara Legion and shouted, "Jin Chuan, you are the first to arrive at the Samsara Legion. Jin Xiaochuan, outstanding military service, promoted from a major to a lieutenant." As soon as Yi-chun finished speaking, Captain Jin Chuan of the Samsara Legion stepped out of the formation with excitement. He then knelt down on one knee and bowed to Yi-chun. Jin Chuan thanks the Lord for his bestowal. As the bestowal continued, Yi-chun read out the names of the veterans of the Samsara Legion one after another. Everyone was promoted by one rank, including those who were originally subordinates of Zhao Yun, Dian Wei, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and the others. They were allowed to join the Samsara Legion because of their contributions. When Yi-chun finished bestowing the rewards, the reorganization of the Samsara Legion was completed. After taking a look at the new Samsara Legion, Yi-chun nodded with satisfaction. He then looked at Dian Wei and shouted, "Dian Wei." When Dian Wei heard this, he hurriedly walked in front of Yi-chun and knelt down on one knee. Yi-chun then looked at Dian Wei and shouted, "From today onwards, you will be the commander of the Samsara Legion. From today onwards, you will be stripped of your position as a general. Are you willing to do so?" As soon as Yi-chun finished speaking, Zhao Yun, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Zhong, Li Yuanba, Gan Ning, Gao Shun, and Zhang Liao were all stunned. As far as they knew, Dian Wei had never done anything wrong, let alone disobey military orders. He shouldn't have been punished by Yi Chun. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in a daze. Just when everyone was puzzled and thought that Dian Wei had angered his lord, Yi Chun, Dian Wei did not hesitate to bow and salute loudly. This general is willing. When Yi Chun heard this, he glanced at Dian Wei and then said, "Don't worry. In that case, you will be reinstated as the commander of the Samsara Legion." "Yes, my lord." When Dian Wei heard this, a silly smile appeared on his face. Then, he bowed to Yi Chun and saluted loudly. Yi Chun had previously promised Dian Wei that he would let him return to the Samsara Legion. Now that he had officially appointed him, the matter was settled. Dian Wei was naturally happy. After all, this had always been Dian Wei's hobby. As for Dian Wei's desire to return to the Samsara Legion, it was because the Samsara Legion was better and had more members. This was because Dian Wei was loyal to Yi Chun and would not have any ulterior motives. This could be seen from the fact that Dian Wei had chosen to be Yi Chun's bodyguard and risked his life to save Yi Chun when he was surrounded by the players. Therefore, Dian Wei's desire to return to the Samsara Legion was not mixed with any ulterior motives. When Dian Wei finished speaking, Zhao Yun, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Zhong, Li Yuanba, Gan Ning, Gao Shun, and Zhang Liao looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. When Yi Chun saw this, he couldn't help but smile. Then he looked at Zhao Yun, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and Huang Zhong and said, "The rest of the soldiers will be distributed among the soldiers. As for the promotion of the soldiers, it will be based on their battle achievements." "Yes, my lord." When Zhao Yun, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Zhong, Li Yuanba, Gao Shun, Zhang Liao, and Gan Ning heard this, they bowed in unison. When Yi Chun heard this, he chuckled and nodded. Then, he passed the military merit booklet to Guo Jia. When Guo Jia saw this, he hurriedly reached out with both hands and received it. Then, he looked at Yi Chun and bowed. "My lord, what kind of standards should the new soldiers' pay and equipment be prepared according to?" "The pay and benefits will be the same as the veterans. As for equipment, let Zizhong supervise the blacksmiths to forge heaven-grade equipment. When there are enough, I'll use the cauldron of heaven and earth to upgrade them to spiritual equipment and distribute them." When Yi Chun heard Guo Jia's question, he smiled and replied, "Yes, my lord." When Guo Jia heard this, he nodded and bowed. When Yi Chun heard this, he looked at his subordinates and said, "I'll leave this to you. I'll leave this place to you. Remember, all promotion rewards will be calculated according to military merit. Nothing more, nothing less." "Yes, my lord." When the generals heard this, Zhao Yun, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Zhong, Li Yuanba, Gan Ning, Gao Shun, and Zhang Liao unhesitatingly bowed to Yi Chun. Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded his head before flying straight to the city lord's mansion, Luoyang Imperial Palace, in a secluded hall. Lord Personal Attendant, that dog thief, He Jin, has already entered the palace. As soon as the young eunuch who came to report the news finished speaking, the 10 senior eunuchs sitting in the hall looked at each other and then stood up together. Success or failure will be decided soon. After a sharp shout, senior eunuch Zhang Rang looked at the junior eunuch kneeling on the ground and shouted, "Pass on my orders. No matter the cost, we must kill that old bastard He Jin." "Yes." When the eunuch heard this, he hurriedly bowed and saluted. After he finished speaking, he hurriedly left the hall. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a furious roar came from the path leading from the imperial palace to the imperial harem. "Zhang Rang, you little brat, you dare to kill me?" The voice came from He Jin's mouth, and the moment he landed, the sound of arrows being released could be heard. Whoosh, 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 squelch, squelch, squelch. The sound of hundreds of arrows hitting the body could be heard. The mighty great general of the Great Han Empire, He Jin, had died in the imperial palace for no apparent reason. At the moment of He Jin's death, a world announcement suddenly sounded. Ding! The Lieutenant Colonel Yuan Shao advised Great General He Jin to kill the eunuchs to win the hearts of the people, but his plan was accidentally leaked. Zhang Rang and Zhao Zhong killed Great General He Jin when he entered the palace. The history of the Great Han Empire will automatically enter the Dongzhuo Rebellion. The world announcement was repeated 3 times, and it instantly blew up the world channel. F***CK. F***CK. What's going on? Why did the Dongzhuo Rebellion start so soon? What's so strange about this? Don't forget that it was He Jin's death that caused the Dongzhuo Rebellion. Otherwise, Dongzhuo wouldn't have the guts to act so recklessly. F***CK. What's the use of talking about this? Dongzhuo Rebellion is our chance to reap some benefits. This is the F***King main point. The problem is, how are we going to reap any benefits? We have no clue at all. The world channel was abuzz, and it was constantly updated. Yi Chun, who had just returned to the city lord's residence in the reincarnation immortal city, opened his eyes wide. After waiting for so long, Dongzhuo's chaos has finally begun. Chapter 1254. The Dongzhuo Rebellion was the prerequisite for the struggle for hegemony. Without the Dongzhuo Rebellion, there would be no struggle for hegemony. It seemed nonsensical, but it was the truth. After all, the last shred of dignity of the great Han imperial family had been destroyed by Dongzhuo. As a result, the vassals who originally had ulterior motives completely lost their fear of the great Han imperial family. It went without saying what a vassal without fear would do. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that if Yi Chun wanted to sweep through the world and obtain all the fortune of the great Han, he had to wait for the struggle for hegemony to begin. Because at that time, the remaining fortune of the great Han would be divided among the various vassals. At that time, Yi Chun would only need to sweep his way through and easily take all the fortune of the great Han Empire for himself. This was also the reason why Yi Chun was so concerned about the start of Dongzhuo's rebellion. After all, once the Dongzhuo Rebellion began, the struggle for hegemony would not be far off. Once the struggle for hegemony began, Yi Chun would officially mobilize his troops and sweep through the world. Luoyang, Great General He Jin's residence. A guard covered in blood staggered through the door. Then he rushed in the hall and loudly yelled, "Everyone, you've been waiting for a long time. The great general has been killed." The moment the guard of the He residence said this, the scions of the great clans who had been invited by Yuan Shao to the imperial palace froze and paled. At this moment, Yuan Shao shot to his feet and rushed out of the hall to the front courtyard, where he grabbed the bloodied guard of the He residence. "What did you say? Great general was killed by Zhang Rang." The guard from the He residence, who was caught, suddenly shivered when he saw Yuan Shao's man-eating gaze. He then spoke with a trembling voice. When Yuan Shao heard this, he threw the bloody guard of the He residence to the ground and then unsheathed the sword at his waist. He turned to the scions of the great clans in the hall and shouted, "The eunuch rebellion has disrupted the eunuchs. Everyone, the eunuchs are causing chaos in the imperial court. We cannot sit idly by. Whoever dares to follow me into the imperial palace, we will kill them all. I, Chao Mingde, am willing." When Cao Cao heard this, he stood up without hesitation and shouted. Once Cao Cao's words left his mouth, the commander of the He family, who stayed behind to accompany Yuan Shao and the others, suddenly stood up with a tongue. "Kill all the eunuchs. Avenge the great general." As soon as the family general finished speaking, the scions in the hall looked at each other and then stood up in unison. "Kill all the eunuchs. Use the power of the imperial court." When Yuan Shao heard this, he laughed out loud and then shouted, "Good. Everyone, follow me into the palace and exterminate the eunuchs." As soon as Yuan Shao finished speaking, the disciples of the aristocratic families left the hall one after another. Then they led their family generals and followed Yuan Shao toward the imperial palace. Luoyang Palace. Zhang Rang, who was holding He Jin's head, spat a mouthful of thick phlegm onto He Jin's head. "Old man Zhang Rang, to think that you would have such a day. Zhang Changshi, with He Jin dead, we can rest easy in the future." Zhao Zhong, one of the 10 attendants, faintly smiled and said. When Zhang Rang heard this, he casually threw away He Jin's head in his right hand. Then, he looked at the 9 eunuchs beside him and said, "Although He Jin is dead, we cannot lower our guard. It must be known that the aristocratic families also want us dead." True. For example, the Yuan clan's Yuan Shao. It was this little thief who suggested to old man He Jin to get rid of us. When Zhao Zhong heard this, he paused for a moment before nodding in agreement. "How about we have His Majesty issue a decree to summon Yuan Shao into the palace and use this opportunity to get rid of this little thief?" Guo Sheng, one of the 10 servants, frowned when he heard this. He then glanced at Zhang Rang and the others and said. Bai Lan, one of the 10 attendants, shook her head and said, "If we kill He Jin, the aristocratic families won't make things difficult for us. But if we kill Yuan Shao, the aristocratic families, especially the Yuan clan, who is one of the 3 dukes, will not let the matter rest. Then what do we do? Could it be that we can only sit and wait for death?" Gao Wang's face darkened when he heard this. When Zhang Rang heard this, he glanced at the attendants and said, "Old man He Jin is a coarse butcher. If we charge him with the crime of bringing soldiers into the palace with the intention of rebelling, we can shut the mouths of the world. Even the aristocratic families will not be able to find fault with us. As for that little thief Yuan Shao, let's pretend that nothing has happened for now. Once this matter is stabilized, we will properly settle this debt with him." "I agree. I also agree." Zhang Rang let out a smile after seeing that everyone had agreed. However, before he could speak, a miserable cry could be heard coming from a distance away. Ah! When Zhang Rang heard this, his face paled. He hurriedly looked at the young eunuch and shouted, "Quickly go and investigate." "Yes, Lord Attendant." When the eunuch heard this, he hurriedly bowed and said. After that, he hurriedly ran off into the distance. However, before he could run far, a young eunuch covered in blood ran over from afar in a panic. When he reached Zhang Rang, Zhao Zhong, and the others, the young eunuch ignored etiquette and screamed, "Lord Attendant, Yuan Shao, Chow Chow, and the other aristocratic families have brought their soldiers into the palace. Yuan Binshu wants to rebel." When Zhang Rang heard this, his face paled, and he cried out in alarm. At this moment, wave after wave of slogans could be heard. "Exterminate the eunuchs and restore order to the court." When Zhang Rang, Zhao Zhong, Gao Wang, and the other eunuchs heard this, their faces all paled. A second later, Zhang Rang shouted, "Retreat! Take Xiao Di with you." As soon as Zhang Rang's words fell, Zhao Zhong, Gao Wang, and the other eunuchs immediately understood what Zhang Rang meant. They wanted to use Xiao Di as a life-saving talisman. As long as they could escape from Yuan Shao's pursuit, they could bewitch Xiao Di and accuse Yuan Shao of plotting a rebellion. When they came to their senses, Zhao Zhong, Gao Wang, and the other eunuchs nodded without hesitation. All right. In the next second, Zhang Rang, Zhao Zhong, and the other eunuchs ran into the depths of the palace without hesitation. Not long after, Zhang Rang and the other eunuchs brought the pale-faced Liu Bian, whose eyes were filled with fear, and the second prince, Liu Xie, whom they had coincidentally met, to another palace gate of the imperial palace. Zhang Rang and the others had escaped. Yuan Shao, who had killed so many eunuchs in the palace, quickly received the news and chased after them with a group of aristocratic families. Outside Luoyang by the Yellow River, Zhang Rang, who had fled with Xiao Di, Liu Bian, and the second prince Liu Xie, was just about to find a boat to cross the river when a large army suddenly surrounded them from both sides. Chapter 1255. When Zhang Rang, Zhao Zhong, Gao Wang, and the other eunuchs saw this, their faces turned deathly pale. There was nowhere to run, and they were about to be buried. This was the only thought in the minds of Zhang Rang, Zhao Zhong, and the other eunuchs. "I can't accept this. I can't accept this." After Zhao Zhong screamed at the sky, he pulled out the long sword at his waist and slashed at his neck. Chila, a sound was heard, and scarlet blood began to spray in an instant. In the next second, Zhao Zhong fell to the ground and stopped breathing. When Gao Wang, Guosheng, and the other eunuchs saw this. They all sighed and committed suicide on the spot. The only one who didn't die was Zhang Rang. He looked up at the dark night sky and shed tears of despair. You Lord Beach, why haven't you appeared yet? I can't accept this. I can't accept this. When Zhang Rang said this, he immediately knelt down and bowed to Lu Bian's palanquin. Your Majesty, this servant can no longer serve you. Before I leave, this servant has something to tell your Majesty. When Zhang Rang said this, his eyes suddenly revealed a look of extreme resentment. In the next second, Zhang Rang screamed at Lu Bian's palanquin. The aristocratic families all have disloyal hearts. Your Majesty, please remember these words and don't listen to the flowery words of the aristocratic families. If there is a chance, your Majesty must kill all of the aristocratic families. Otherwise, the great Han dynasty will be destroyed. When Zhang Rang said this, he bowed 3 more times to Lu Bian's palanquin and said, Your Majesty, this servant will leave first. As soon as Zhang Rang finished his words, Lu Bian burst into tears with a wah sound. When Zhang Rang heard this, he looked at the crying palanquin and sighed deeply. Then he jumped into the surging yellow river and disappeared. At this moment, the dense sound of burning torches rang out one after another. Bang, bang, bang. A second later, the pitch-black night sky was illuminated by countless torches, revealing the vast western Liang army. Right at this moment, the sound of hurried horse hooves could be heard, and then Dong Zhuo charged over with a few of his subordinates. Who is blocking the way? A tyrannical roar suddenly rang out from Dong Zhuo's mouth. At this moment, Lu Bian, who had been sobbing softly, suddenly stopped crying. At this moment, a junior eunuch who didn't have the courage to self-destruct stepped forward, trembling, and kneeled to Dong Zhuo. It's your Majesty, your Majesty? Dong Zhuo was taken aback. At this moment, Dong Zhuo's subordinates heard Zhang Rang and nodded, indicating that the junior eunuch was telling him the truth. When Dong Zhuo saw this, he was just about to dismount from his horse and greet them when he abruptly stopped himself. Is His Majesty's deaths who dares? Dong Zhuo's murderous words stunned the young eunuch kneeling on the ground. He hadn't expected Dong Zhuo to say this. Just as he was wondering if Dong Zhuo hadn't received the news of the young emperor's succession, Dong Zhuo swung his sword. Slash! The little eunuch's neck was instantly cut off by the long sword. Then his head flew into the air. The surrounding palace maids and the junior eunuchs who didn't have the courage to self-destruct all widened their eyes and screamed in terror. Dong Zhuo glanced at the surrounding eunuchs and palace maids and curled his lips in disdain. At this moment, a childish yet dignified reprimand could be heard all of a sudden. Dong Zhuo, are you trying to rebel? Who dares to be so impudent? Dong Zhuo's eyes widened as he roared. This prince. As soon as he finished speaking, the second prince, Lu Xie, strode out. Dong Zhuo's expression darkened, but he quickly regained his composure. Dong Zhuo laughed and dismounted from his horse. He cupped his fists at Lu Xie and said, It's the second prince. So it's the second prince. Zhuo, I'm late. Please forgive me. Lu Xie glanced at Dong Zhuo in disgust and said, I forgive you. As soon as Lu Xie's words landed, his complexion turned incomparably pale all of a sudden. At the same time, large amounts of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. In the next second, Lu Xie hugged his head and let out an extremely miserable howl. Seeing this, Dong Zhuo, who had been angry because of Lu Xie's words, was stunned. While Dong Zhuo didn't understand why Lu Xie had suddenly screamed, Lu Xie looked up at Dong Zhuo and said in a trembling voice, Why don't you go and see His Majesty? Why aren't you going to meet His Majesty? Do you really want to rebel? Dong Zhuo's expression darkened at Lu Xie's words, but he didn't explode in the end. After taking a deep look at Lu Xie, Dong Zhuo stepped forward and bowed to Lu Bian's palanquin. Dong Zhuo pays respects to His Majesty. No need for formalities. When Lu Bian heard this, his body trembled violently, and he stuttered as he spoke. Dong Zhuo looked disdainful when he heard Lu Bian's nervous words. Lu Xie, who had come out to reprimand Dong Zhuo, glanced at Dong Zhuo and said, "The 10 permanent attendants rebelled and killed the great general. They even kidnapped His Majesty and me to leave the palace. Fortunately, General Dong arrived in time and caused the 10 permanent attendants' plan to fail. His Majesty will reward General Dong tomorrow. Now, General Dong, please escort His Majesty and me back to the palace." "All right." When Dong Zhuo heard this, he glanced at Lu Xie and bowed. After that, he mounted his horse and shouted, "Let's go. Escort His Majesty back to the palace." "Yes, General." Dong Zhuo's Western Liang soldiers shouted in unison. They escorted Lu Bian's convoy back to Luoyang. Reincarnation Immortal City, City Governor's Mansion. Damn it, I didn't expect Lu Xie to still want to resist at this juncture. Fortunately, this bastard was controlled by me with the slave contract. Otherwise, there would be many variables in Dong Zhuo's trip to the capital. Lu Xie had failed to be possessed by Li Mubai. He had obtained Li Mubai's memories and learned about the history of the Great Han Dynasty. Lu Xie had done many things to change his fate. Unfortunately, Yi Chun had discovered him before he had even started. In the end, Yi Chun had used the ancient contract book to enslave Lu Xie. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Lu Xie had wanted to kill Dong Zhuo when he had met with him. If it was someone else, they might not succeed, but Lu Xie was different. This bastard had inherited Li Mubai's memories, and according to Li Mubai's memories, he had obtained Li Mubai's legacy, the torrential pear blossom needles, an extremely powerful hidden weapon. If Yi Chun had not ordered Lu Xie to be an obedient second prince and not plot against those historical figures, Lu Xie would not have been punished by the slave contract law for trying to kill Dong Zhuo. To be more precise, the scream that Lu Xie had just let out was caused by the punishment of the slave contract. If it wasn't for the fact that this son of a bitch can't die, I would have annihilated his soul right now. Chapter 12:56. Lu Xie was a key figure in the Dong Zhuo rebellion and the struggle for hegemony. If Yi Chun really killed Lu Xie, both the Dong Zhuo rebellion and the subsequent struggle for hegemony would experience uncontrollable changes. In this way, Yi Chun's plan to obtain all of the fortune of the Great Han Empire would be greatly affected. Yi Chun did not wish to see such a situation. Otherwise, Yi Chun would have killed Lu Xie long ago. Why would he have kept him alive until now? At this thought, Yi Chun coldly said, "This is my last warning. Don't try to change history, or I'll make you wish you were dead." As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Lu Xie, who was sitting in a palanquin on the streets of Luoyang, turned pale and hastily bowed in the direction of Reincarnation Immortal City. "Master, I won't have such thoughts again. I swear." Lu Xie didn't open his mouth to speak, but Yi Chun heard every single word he wanted to say. Yi Chun smiled coldly when he heard Lu Xie's thoughts. "Remember, you only have one chance. Next time, the punishment will not be so simple." "Yes, Master." Lu Xie heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Yi Chun's transmission. He then bowed in the direction of Reincarnation Immortal City. Yi Chun glanced at Lu Xie, who was sitting in a palanquin heading toward the Imperial Palace, and then paid no more attention to him. At first glance, Yi Chun's actions seemed a little arrogant. He had actually believed Lu Xie just because Lu Xie had admitted defeat. But this was not the case at all. After all, Lu Xie was Yi Chun's slave. With the slave contract created by the ancient contract book restricting him, Yi Chun had no need to keep an eye on Lu Xie at all times. To be more precise, as long as Lu Xie had any thoughts of disobeying Yi Chun, the slave contract would severely punish him, and Yi Chun would immediately sense it. Therefore, Yi Chun was not afraid that Lu Xie would lie. Dong Zhuo had entered Luoyang, and chaos was about to begin. Chaos, the more chaos the better. That way, the war of vassals could start sooner. Thinking of this, Yi Chun's eyes shone brightly. The vassal contest will be the time for me to make my move. Before that, I'll refine all the Khanate spirit treasures and Khanate cardinal treasures that I haven't completely refined yet Otherwise, when he reached the primordial world and used his connate merit to refine connate numinous treasures, he would be sensed by the mighty figures of the primordial world. That would not be fun. Yichen was not afraid of anything, but Yichen did not want to attract a lot of trouble. After all, Yichen's realm was there for all to see. Even if Yichen could directly advance to a golden immortal after ascending to the chaos world, it would be useless. One had to know that the primeval world was the top world. In that place, a gold immortal could only make a splash. It was nonsense to think that a gold immortal could overturn the rivers and seas and dominate the world. And this was from Yichen's perspective. If Yichen was to establish the Samsara Empire in the near future, then Yichen would have to keep a low profile. It should be noted that in the Samsara Empire, except for Yichen, the powerful emperor, the generals, the civil officials, the soldiers, and the people under him were all weak and pathetic. If Yichen really went around posturing after ascending to the primordial world and attracted the attention of the primordial world's mighty figures, then not only would Yichen not be able to cultivate in peace, but Yichen's Samsara Empire would also be unable to quietly develop. If the Samsara Empire could not be improved, then Yichen's plan of using the imperial path of providence to enhance his cultivation speed would be ruined. Without the enhancement of cultivation speed, Yichen could forget about attaining Tao and becoming a saint within 10,000 years. Therefore, Yichen had to keep a low profile after ascending to the primordial world. And before ascending, refining all the connate spiritual treasures and connate cardinal treasures in advance was the most low-key and also the most correct choice. After all, this was the beginner's area of the three kingdoms. No matter how much Yichen refined the connate spiritual treasures and connate cardinal treasures with connate merit, no one would be able to sense it. But the primordial world was different. If Yichen dared to do so there, he would definitely be sensed by the mighty figures of the primordial world, who would then trace him all the way to Yichen. If such a situation really happened, Yichen would be in danger. And the most dangerous of all was the connate cardinal treasure, the Xianhuang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth. As for the reason, it was very simple. The Xianhuang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth was Taishang Laojuan's connate cardinal treasure. But Yichen had directly drawn it from the lottery, cutting off the connection between the Xianhuang exquisite pagoda and Taishang Laojun. If Yichen refined other connate spiritual treasures or connate cardinal treasures in the primordial world and was detected and traced here, then Yichen would very likely lose the connate spiritual treasures and save his life. But if Yichen refined the Xianhuang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth, then it would be different. If Yichen dared to do so, Taishang Laojun would definitely sense it and trace him all the way here. Then, even if Yichen handed over the Xianhuang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth, he would not be able to save his life. Of course, this was just a hypothesis. If such a situation really happened, Yichen would not hand over any of the connate spiritual treasures. Of all the connate spiritual treasures I have, the Xianhuang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth is the most dangerous. I'll refine it first. At the thought of this, Yichen shifted his mind, and the connate cardinal treasure, the Xianhuang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth, appeared above Yichen's head. Taking a look at the pagoda that was emitting a mysterious yellow light, Yichen could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then, with a wave of his right hand, 10,000 Tao comprehension stones appeared in front of Yichen. Taking a look at the 10,000 Tao comprehension stones floating in front of him, Yichen shifted his mind and chose to use them without hesitation. Ding! Player Yichen used Tao comprehension stones x 10,000. Tao comprehension mode activated. Duration 10,000 minutes. After each Tao comprehension stone was used, it could maintain the Tao comprehension mode for 1 minute. 10,000 Tao comprehension stones meant 10,000 minutes. Based on the number of Tao comprehension stones he had used to refine the 5-element spiritual pearl, it would be a complete waste for Yichen to use 10,000 Tao comprehension stones to refine primordial cardinal treasures and supreme grade primordial spirit treasures. However, this was not the case at all. The 5 elements spiritual pearls that Yi Chun had refined were only connate spiritual treasures. The difficulty of refining them could not be compared to supreme-grade connate spiritual treasures or connate cardinal treasures. Otherwise, how could Yi Chun use 10,000 Dao comprehension stones directly? After the system's notification ended, Yi Chun took a look at the Xian Huang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth floating above his head and entered the refining mode directly. At this moment, the Xian Huang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth floating above Yi Chun's head suddenly shook. With a buzzing sound, layers and layers of golden halos suddenly erupted from the Xian Huang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth and dissipated rapidly in all directions. At this moment, the entire hall of the city lord's mansion was dyed in a golden color. At the same time, a mysterious aura erupted from Yi Chun's body and spread in all directions. After feeling the connection with the Xian Huang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth, Yi Chun shifted his mind and connected with the massive amount of connate merit in his body. In the next second, Yi Chun stripped out 1 billion connate merit from the massive amount of connate merit in his body without hesitation and threw them into the Xian Huang exquisite pagoda of heaven and earth. Boom! An extremely mysterious aura erupted instantly. Then, the golden halos spread rapidly. In the blink of an eye, the entire reincarnation immortal city was dyed in a golden color. Chapter 12:57. At this moment, the tens of millions of new soldiers on the drill ground in Reincarnation Immortal City were stunned. In the next second, the tens of millions of new soldiers entered a state of epiphany at the same time. Reincarnation Immortal City inside the drill ground. Zhao Yun, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Zhong, Li Yuanba, Gan Ning, Zhang Liao, and the other generals who had just adjusted the number of their respective defense teams saw this, and their eyes lit up. Zhao Yun, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Zhong, Li Yuanba, Gan Ning, and the other generals who had gone through a few epiphanies could naturally see what was happening to the tens of millions of new soldiers in Reincarnation Immortal City. It was precisely because they could see it that they were so excited. After all, after the epiphany, the new soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City would all break through to the pre-celestial state. Although such existences weren't as strong as the old soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City, they were already at the upper tier level in this world. This was purely based on strength. If one were to consider the spirit-grade equipment sets that Yi Chun would soon equip the recruits with, each of them will be able to directly jump into the ranks of the top in the world. This wasn't a joke. One must know that spirit artifact level armor sets didn't belong to this world at all. After wearing them, other than Yi Chun's forces, no one in the 3 kingdoms could break through the defense of the new soldiers. Even the number 1 general of the 3 kingdoms, Lu Bu, wouldn't be able to break through with the Fangtian halberd. In this way, the tens of millions of new soldiers in the Reincarnation Immortal City would be able to charge at the forefront of the army when their lord, Yi Chun, officially set out to conquer the world. Then, they would be able to sweep through everything. At first glance, it didn't seem reasonable. After all, the 41 million old soldiers in Reincarnation Immortal City's army were all at the mortal evolution state. It would be easier for them to sweep through everything. It was too time-consuming to let the new soldiers charge. However, the truth wasn't like this at all. One must know that even if the old soldiers were to attack, they would still have to attack the city properly. After all, they couldn't fly at all. As for the new soldiers, they were naturally the same. However, the problem was that although the new soldiers' attack power was not as good as the old soldiers, they were still able to attack the city as if they were cutting vegetables. Of course, there was a prerequisite. The recruits had to reach the Xiantian realm first. Otherwise, even if they were equipped with spiritual equipment sets, they would only be a group of children holding guns. Cao Cao nodded with a smile and cupped his fist. He turned and left. Soon, he disappeared from the streets of Chong. After Cao Cao left, Yuan Shao curled his lips in disdain and said in a low voice, "Idiot." He actually didn't want the credit for saving the emperor. "That's great. I won't get a share of the credit." In a remote alley in Luoyang, Cao Cao, who was leaving with Xiahou Yuan and Xiahou Dun, looked back and said in a low voice, "Quickly leave Luoyang." "My lord, why did you give up the credit for saving the emperor?" Xiahou Chun asked after a slight pause. "Dong Zhuo entered the city in the middle of the night and brought so many soldiers. I'm afraid he came with ill intentions. We can't get involved in this mess." Cao Cao smiled coldly and said. Xiahou Yuan was stunned and asked, "My lord, what do you mean? Yuan Xiao can't control Dong Zhuo?" Cao Cao nodded and said, "That's right. According to what I know, Dong Zhuo has been recruiting soldiers, training soldiers, and purchasing armaments since the Yellow Turban Rebellion. He wouldn't have done this if he didn't have any ulterior motives." Xiahou Chun's eyes widened, and he said in a low voice, "My lord, why don't I go over now and wring Dong Zhuo's head off so that he won't hinder my lord's great cause?" Cao Cao shook his head and said, "No. If I'm not wrong, this person must be the cause of the chaos. We can't kill him, at least not now." "Yes, my lord." "Master." Xiahou Yuan and Xiahou Chun were both stunned when they heard this, and then they hurriedly bowed. Cao Cao stroked his beard and said, "Let's go. Let's go back to Xuchang." Chapter 1258. The moment Cao Cao's words fell, Xiahou Yuan and Xiahou Chun both bowed and said, "Yes, my lord." When Cao Cao heard this, he glanced at Yuan Xiao in the distance. Then he took Xiahou Dun, Xiahou Yuan, and some family generals and left Luoyang in the dark. On the main street, Yuan Xiao stopped Liu Bian's entourage. He straightened his robes and headed straight for Liu Bian's palanquin. Just as Yuan Xiao was about to bow, a white-faced, beardless general suddenly rode up on his horse to welcome him. "Who are you?" With a shout, a long saber appeared in front of Yuan Xiao's eyes. In that instant, Yuan Xiao's body stiffened. In the next second, Yuan Xiao's heart was filled with immense anger. "Dong Zhuo, take care of your dog." As soon as Yuan Xiao's furious words landed, the beardless general swung his saber at him. Bang! Yuan Xiao was instantly sent flying. Two bloody teeth flew out of Yuan Xiao's mouth. Pong! Walla! Yuan Xiao, who had crashed into a shelf on the side of the street, fell into a daze. He hadn't expected Dong Zhuo's subordinates to treat him like this. While Yuan Xiao was in a daze, Yuan Xiao's family generals unsheathed their swords. However, before they could make a move, Dong Zhuo's subordinates drew their bows and aimed their arrows at them. At this moment, everyone's body stiffened. At the same time, the beardless general sneered and roared, "His Majesty is back. Your Majesty, return to the palace. Kill anyone who blocks your way." Yuan Xiao, the disciples of the major clans, and their generals immediately came back to their senses when they heard this. Then, they saw that everyone's expressions had changed. Clearly, Yuan Xiao and the others hadn't expected Dong Zhuo's subordinates to do this. After a brief silence, Yuan Xiao, who had fallen to the ground, gloomily looked at the beardless general and coldly asked, "Who are you? Who are you?" "Hua Xiong." The white-faced, beardless general curled his lips in disdain when he heard this. Yuan Xiao glared at Hua Xiong and said, "Let's go. Let's go." After Yuan Xiao finished speaking, he left with a group of aristocratic family disciples and family generals. In the middle of Dong Zhuo's army. "Father-in-law, why did you let Yuan Xiao go?" Dong Zhuo's son-in-law, Li Ru, asked Dong Zhuo after glancing at Yuan Xiao's group. When Dong Zhuo heard this, he glanced at Li Ru and said, "The Yuan clan's prestige is quite high. If we don't let him go, I'm afraid it will attract quite a bit of trouble. So, we can't touch him for the time being. Father-in-law, most of the Yuan family is currently in Luoyang. It's best to wipe them out." When Li Ru heard that, he hurriedly bowed. Dong Zhuo glared at Li Ru when he heard this. "If I want to be in power, I must obtain the recognition of these shitty aristocratic families. Otherwise, how can I stabilize the world? But, father-in-law, if you humiliate Yuan Xiao like this, it's going to cause a rift between us. Even if father-in-law tries to salvage the situation, It won't help. Li Ru immediately bowed and said, but he was interrupted by Dong Zhuo before he could finish. I have a lot of troops in my hands. Luoyang belongs to me. They won't dare to say anything. When Li Ru heard this, he immediately realized that Dong Zhuo was angry. He hurriedly shut his mouth and bowed respectfully to Dong Zhuo. Yes, father-in-law. Dong Zhuo nodded in satisfaction. He then looked at the guard beside him and said, Tell Hua Xiong to hurry to Huaxia. Tell Hua Xiong to enter the palace as soon as possible. I want to stay in the palace tonight. Yes, General. When the guard heard this, he hurriedly bowed and saluted. After that, he hurriedly ran to the front. When Li Ru heard this, he opened his mouth but didn't say anything in the end. Reincarnation Immortal City, City Lord Manor. A mysterious and indescribable aura continuously radiated from Yichun, who had entered Dao comprehension mode and used his innate merit to refine the Huaxia exquisite pagoda. It then spread throughout the entire Reincarnation Immortal City. Buzz, buzz. The Huaxia exquisite pagoda of the Huaxia exquisite pagoda of the Huaxia exquisite pagoda spun continuously. The golden and dazzling light grew stronger and stronger. When the light reached its peak, the 10 million new recruits in the drill ground suddenly opened their eyes. Then, a powerful aura emerged from their bodies and shot up into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The 10 million new recruits reached the innate realm almost at the same time. At the edge of the drill ground, Zhao Yun, Dian Wei, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Zhong, and the other generals' eyes lit up at the sight of the new recruits. At this moment, the veterans of the Reincarnation Immortal City suddenly trembled. Then they saw an aura that was filled with violent killing intent and boundless battle intent rising from the veterans and shooting up into the sky. At this moment, the white clouds above the Reincarnation Immortal City were dyed red. Zhao Yun, Dian Wei, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Zhong, and the other generals were stunned at this sight. At this moment, the auras of the tens of millions of newly advanced recruits suddenly fused together and flew straight into the blood cloud in the sky. At this moment, the blood clouds kept twisting and twisting. Then, four incomparably huge divine beasts suddenly emerged from the blood clouds. Roar! A roar that shook the heavens and the earth was heard. Seeing this scene, Zhao Yun's eyes suddenly opened wide. Then he shouted in alarm, This is the white tiger, green dragon, vermilion bird, and black tortoise battle formation. As soon as Zhao Yun finished speaking, Dian Wei, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and Huang Zhong looked at each other and revealed a joyful smile. At this moment, Sun Jian, Sun Su, Ma Teng, Ma Dai, Ma Chao, Su Chu, and Ma Tai, who had just joined the Reincarnation Immortal City, opened their eyes at the same time. At the same time, an extremely powerful aura erupted from their bodies. Clearly, Sun Jian, Sun Su, Ma Teng, and Ma Chao's advancement was different from the new recruits. To be more precise, Sun Jian, Sun Su, Ma Teng, and Ma Chao broke through to the mortal evolution state due to this enlightenment. After being dazed for a moment, Sun Jian, Sun Su, Ma Teng, Ma Chao, and the 10 million new recruits looked toward the direction of the Reincarnation Immortal City's City Lord estate. Then they knelt on one knee and bowed loudly. Thank you, Lord, for your grace. We pledge our lives to follow you, Lord. The 10 million new recruits roared, causing the sky to buzz and reverberate endlessly. Reincarnation Immortal City, City Lord Estate. Yi Chun, who had just used up all his merit points, suddenly opened his eyes. Indeed, prenatal cardinal treasures consumed more merit points. However, the refinement was completed. Just as Yi Chun thought about this, the system notification sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully refining prenatal cardinal treasure. Heaven Earth Mystic Yellow Exquisite Pagoda. Chapter 1259. Yi Chun raised his eyebrows at the end of the system's notification. The dark yellow Heaven Earth Exquisite Pagoda was the Grand Supreme's lifelong treasure. This time it was finally mine. Not bad, not bad. Next, to refine the God Slayer. Yichen had just thought of this when the system's notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yichen, Reincarnation Immortal City Army, for comprehending the Khanate battle formations, Black Tortoise battle formation, White Tiger battle formation, Vermilion Bird battle formation, and Green Dragon battle formation. Ding! Special conditions met. Congratulations to player Yi Chun, Reincarnation Immortal City Army, for obtaining the Special Army Battle Formation of 4 symbols. Yi Chun was stunned when the system's notification ended. Damn, what's going on? Using the Khanate merit to refine the Khanate Cardinal Treasure in the Tao Enlightenment mode actually helped the recruits comprehend the 4 Khanate battle formations and the battle formation of 4 symbols. In Yi Chen's opinion, the 10 million Reincarnation Immortal City recruits could reach the Khanate realm while he was refining the dark yellow heaven-earth exquisite pagoda. However, it would be difficult for them to achieve what the Reincarnation Immortal City veterans did. Not only did they improve their cultivation during the Enlightenment, but they also comprehended the 4 Khanate battle formations and the battle formation of 4 symbols. It cannot be helped. The recruits had just joined the army and had not experienced a single battle. They did not have any murderous aura or strong fighting spirit. In such a state, even if they were enlightened, they could not comprehend the 4 Khanate battle formations. There should be the even more powerful battle formation of 4 symbols. But in the end, the 10 million Reincarnation Immortal City recruits comprehended the 4 Khanate battle formations and the even more powerful battle formation of 4 symbols. How could Yi Chun, who had already received the system's notification, not be puzzled and shocked? Of course, apart from being puzzled and shocked, he was also excited. It was hard not to be excited. After all, Yi Chun was on the path of the imperial path of fate. He was destined to conquer the world and dominate the untainted land. How could Yi Chun not be happy that his soldiers had suddenly become stronger? Could it be because he was refining a Khanate cardinal treasure this time? That might really be the case. After all, it was much more difficult to refine natural cardinal treasures, and the profound aura produced during the refinement was much denser as well. That's right, there was also the guidance of the veterans in the Reincarnation Immortal City. Without the veterans, the new recruits would be like rootless duckweeds. It would be impossible for them to comprehend the 4 great Khanate battle formations and the battle formation of 4 symbols. Thinking of this, Yi Chun couldn't help but smirk. Not bad, not bad. I like this unexpected surprise. Thinking of this, Yi Chun's mind moved, and the dark and thick God Slayer instantly appeared in front of Yi Chun. Looking at the God Slayer floating in front of him, Yi Chun couldn't help but reveal a look full of emotions. From the moment I was reborn, entered the game, and obtained the God Slayer, my life completely changed. Old chap, thanks to you. Yi Chun had encountered many enemies along the way. Some were weaker than Yi Chun, some were on par with Yi Chun, and some were even stronger than Yi Chun. The most fundamental reason why Yi Chun could go so smoothly on this journey was that Yi Chun had been reborn. If not for Yi Chun's rebirth, Yi Chun wouldn't have been able to snatch the star bead that could bring 100% of the abilities from the game world back to the real world in advance and directly establish a foundation that was far superior to other players. If not for Yi Chun's rebirth, Yi Chun wouldn't have been able to obtain the diamond-level game capsule and watch Pangu split open the sky as soon as the game was launched. He also wouldn't have been able to obtain the Chaos-level cultivation technique, the 9 Revolutions Mystic Art, and the Divine Knight Thunder-controlling technique that other players couldn't obtain at all. It could be said that without his rebirth, Yi Chun wouldn't have been able to go so smoothly. However, the reason why Yi Chun could go so smoothly was not only because of his rebirth. It was because of the God Slayer's great contribution. If Yi Chun hadn't been so lucky as to obtain the God Slayer at the beginning of the game, Yi Chun wouldn't have been able to obtain attack power that was far superior to all other players at the beginning of the game. If Yi Chun's attack power wasn't high enough, how could he have continuously created one legend after another, triggered one world announcement after another, obtained one opportunity after another, obtained one reward after another, snatched one treasure after another, obtained one super ability after another, and survived one crisis after another. It could be said that rebirth was Yi Chen's greatest asset, and the Godslayer was the key to Yi Chen's rise. Without his rebirth, Yi Chen wouldn't be who he was today, and without the Godslayer, Yi Chen wouldn't be who he was today. It was precisely because Yi Chen was well aware of this that he was filled with emotions when he was preparing to refine the Godslayer. Old friend, are you ready? As soon as Yi Chen asked the question, the Godslayer floating in front of Yi Chen vibrated with a hum. Then, it transmitted a cheerful thought to Yi Chen. After sensing the Godslayer's thought, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile and say, "It's starting." As Yi Chen said this, he used his thought and instantly connected with a massive amount of innate merit in his body. In the next second, Yi Chen extracted 1 billion innate merit from the massive amount of innate merit in his body without hesitation and injected it into the Godslayer, one of the top 10 weapons of primordial times. A buzzing sound was heard, and the thick black God-slaying spear instantly shook. Then, a black light that could destroy the heavens, and the earth exploded from the God-slaying spear, turning into ripples that spread out in all directions. The Godslayer was a supreme weapon of killing. It would have been fine if Yi Chen hadn't refined it. Once he did, the enormous destructive power contained in the Godslayer exploded. Sensing this, Yi Chen was stunned for a moment. Then, he hurriedly rose into the air and flew 10,000 meters above the Reincarnation Immortal City. Looking at the Reincarnation Immortal City that had been swept by the destructive aura of the Godslayer, Yi Chen's mouth twitched involuntarily. Fortunately, the construction materials of the Reincarnation Immortal City were all at the immortal level. Otherwise, the Reincarnation Immortal City would have been gone. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, the God-slaying spear suddenly shook. Then, it transmitted a thought to Yi Chen that said, it was not intentional. Sensing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. Then, he said, I've neglected it. But it's okay. Let's go somewhere else. As Yi Chen said this, the space in front of him instantly distorted with a thought. After taking a look at the distorted space, Yi Chen stepped into it and disappeared. The space above the ruins of the Peanut Shield, which originally belonged to the United States of America and now belonged to the Great Han Empire, was suddenly distorted. Then, Yi Chen stepped out and appeared directly there. Looking at the ruins on the ground, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The United States of America still hadn't taken back the novice area of America. It seemed that the players from the East had killed many of them. Thinking of this, Yi Chen instantly released his divine sense. In the blink of an eye, it completely enveloped the novice area that originally belonged to the United States of America. There were still tens of thousands of United States of America players. Most of them were around level 5. These people weren't a threat and didn't have much time left apart from them. The United States of America players who hadn't come online until now should have died in the real world. The results were not bad. At least, the luck of the United States of America's novice area would belong to him forever. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then he sat cross-legged 10,000 meters in the air and entered the refining state in the blink of an eye. Chapter 1260. Just as Yi Chen entered the refining state, a destructive black light once again erupted from the God-slaying spear. Then, layer after layer of black ripples, with the God-slaying spear as the center, rapidly spread out in all directions. At the same time, a mysterious aura burst out from Yi Chen's body. It became denser and denser, and in the blink of an eye, it covered a radius of 100 miles. On the ground, the players of America who were carefully hiding in the forest, trying to secretly kill monsters to recover their strength so that they would not be killed by monsters in the real world, suddenly felt their scalps go numb, and they were all stunned. If the players from the East were here and saw the soldiers and civilians of the Reincarnation Immortal City in the process of enlightenment, they would definitely widen their eyes and say, the players of America are about to be enlightened. Yes, the players of America were about to be enlightened. However, it was impossible for them to be enlightened. That was because the destructive aura of the Godslayer was increasing rapidly. It was getting denser and denser. It was impossible for them to be enlightened in such an environment. To be more precise, the process of Yi Chun refining the Godslayer was not only not suitable for enlightenment, but it was also very destructive. No one could be enlightened in such an environment. Otherwise, Yi Chun would not have left the reincarnation Immortal City and gone to the beginner's area that originally belonged to the players of America to refine the Godslayer after sensing the danger of refining the Godslayer. Of course, this was not important. The important thing was that the players of America would not be able to gain any benefits from Yi Chun. In the sky, Yi Chun, who had entered a refining state, was wholeheartedly refining the God-slaying spear. He did not pay any attention to the America players on the ground, who had almost gained an epiphany due to the mysterious aura produced by refining the God-slaying spear. To Yi Chun, the most important thing was to completely refine the God-slayer. On the ground, the players of America recovered from their daze and looked up at the players of America in the sky. They could not help but look confused. D*M, what's going on? Why are there so many black ripples in the sky? It's making me feel afraid. I clearly felt that my level was increasing rapidly. Why has it gone all of a sudden? F*CK. D*M, was I hallucinating? Or is a super boss about to appear? Wait, don't tell me Yi Chun is here again. Is the Demon King about to descend? No, it can't be. God will not abandon America. He definitely won't. The remaining players from the United States of America were muttering amongst themselves because of the changes in the sky. They didn't understand the changes in the sky, nor did they understand what kind of opportunity they had just missed. All they had in their hearts was confusion, helplessness, suppression, fear, and the unwillingness and anger that came from being killed countless times by Yi Chun and the Eastern players. Buzz. With the Godslayer as the center, the black ripples continued to spread in circles. The destructive aura of the black ripples became thicker, more intense, and more extensive. After 10 minutes, the players of America, who were in the center of the destructive aura, could not help but stop what they were doing. They had no choice but to do so. The destructive aura of the black ripples that were spreading in the sky not only severely affected their minds, but also caused the wild monsters in the forest to die in batches. That's right, they died suddenly and quickly. As a result, the players of America had no monsters to fight. What's going on? Could it be that a super boss is about to appear? No, it can't be a super boss. If it is, the monsters won't die, and I won't feel like I'm about to die. D*M. What's that black ripple in the sky? Why do I feel like it's getting more and more dangerous? This D*M world. Why didn't they give me a warning when there's a change? I have to leave. Otherwise, if I die again, my level will drop to 0 again. Just as most of the players of America were panicking because of the black ripples in the sky, the sound of thunder that shook the heavens and earth suddenly came from 10,000 meters in the sky. Boom, 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 boom. Countless bolts of black and red lightning appeared out of thin air 10,000 meters in the sky. Then, the world was plunged into darkness. God, tell me, is the world of the game going to end? D*M. Who can tell me what's going on? F*CK. I'm going offline. Just as the players of America were panicking because of the black and red lightning in the sky, a violent and destructive hurricane appeared out of thin air 10,000 meters in the sky and blew towards the ground. Boom, boom, boom. After a series of explosions, all the plants on the ground lost all signs of life. As for the monsters in the forest that had not yet died, the players from the United States of America froze on the spot. Then, they turned into dust and danced in the wind. In the newbie area of the game, the monsters could not be revived after they died. However, the players could be revived after they died. However, none of the players of America who had just died showed the light of revival. What did this mean? It was very simple. The players of America who had been blown by the destructive hurricane were completely dead. No matter if it was in the game world or in the real world, they were all dead. Huff, huff. The hurricane was still howling, bringing destruction and death with it. As far as the eye could see, the land that had been blown by the hurricane was devoid of green and vitality. It had completely fallen into the darkness of destruction and death. This was the power of destruction, which stripped away all life. The source of this power was the Khanate cardinal treasure, the God Slayer, which was floating in front of Yi Chun. As time passed, Yi Chun's refining speed of the God Slayer became faster and faster. As Yi Chun's refining speed increased, the destructive aura became more and more violent and pure. After 2 hours, Yi Chun opened his eyes. At that moment, the hurricane suddenly stopped. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for completely refining the Khanate cardinal treasure, the God Slayer. As soon as the system notification ended, Yi Chun raised his eyebrows. The God Slayer was finally completely refined. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, the massive death aura that covered the entire newbie area of America instantly entered Yi Chun's senses. When Yi Chun sensed this, he was stunned. Then, he lowered his head to look at the ground. Just as Yi Chun saw that the entire newbie area of America had been turned into a land of death, the system notification sounded again. Ding! Player Yi Chun has completely destroyed the players of America's newbie area. Do you want to officially destroy the newbie area of America? Chapter 1261. Yi Chun was stunned when he heard the system's notification. What's going on? Destroy the newbie area of Magnesia? The newbie area can be destroyed? Yi Chun was reborn and knew a lot of secrets and information. However, no matter how much Yi Chun knew, he had never heard of the newbie area being destroyed. Otherwise, Yi Chun wouldn't be so confused. Just as Yi Chun was dumbfounded, the system's notification sounded again. Ding! A reminder to player Yi Chun to completely destroy the newbie area. Player Yi Chun will obtain the identity of Luo, Ho's successor, and permanently obtain all the providence of the newbie area. As soon as the system's notification ended, Yi Chun's eyes widened. F*CK. Destroy my ass. I've never thought of becoming Luo, Ho's successor. Luo Ho was the demon ancestor, the first master of God Slayer, and the greatest opponent of Dao ancestor Hongjun. It was true that he was extremely powerful. However, even so, Yi Chun had no interest in becoming Luo Ho's successor. Even if this would allow Yi Chun to directly eliminate an enemy, Yi Chun wouldn't be interested. Damn it! Yi Chun had been reborn and had struggled until now. He finally had the strength, influence, and everything he had today. He was about to complete his set plan and become the emperor of the Providence dynasty. Then, he would rise to power. How could he become Luo Ho's successor just to eliminate a powerful enemy and permanently obtain all the providence of the newbie area of Magnesia? That was impossible. Yi Chun wanted to be a man who could prove his great path and crush everything. Becoming Luo Ho's follower was a joke. Thinking of this, Yi Chun curled his lips in disdain and then shouted, I refuse. As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, the system's notification sounded again. Ding! Player Yi Chun refuses to destroy the newbie area of Magnesia. The location of Magnesia in the real world will remain. As soon as the system's notification ended, Yi Chun was stunned, and then his eyes widened. F*CK your grandpa. Fortunately, I'm not interested in the descendants of Rahu, so I didn't choose to destroy them. Otherwise, wouldn't the Earth in the real world be missing a lot? The loss of a large portion of the Earth in the real world was not a trivial matter. One had to know that the Earth in the real world was recovering its spiritual energy because of the meteors falling to the ground and the arrival of the Primordial game. If at this time, the Earth lost even a little bit of its spiritual chi, then the spiritual chi of heaven and earth on Earth would definitely not recover to the level that Yi Chun could reach in his previous life. At first glance, it didn't seem to have much to do with Yi Chun, but that wasn't the case at all. This was because the concentration of heaven and earth spirit chi on Earth was still increasing steadily even after Yi Chun was reborn. Boom, boom. Then, a violent lightning bolt with a diameter of 10,000 meters appeared out of thin air and struck straight at Yichun. Boom. The extremely violent lightning bolt filled with a destructive aura instantly struck Yichun. At this moment, heaven and earth were enraged and space was turbulent. If a player saw this scene, they would definitely be scared out of their wits. F***CK. Who could withstand a lightning bolt with a diameter of 10,000 meters? However, in the end, Yichun didn't howl in pain. Instead, he let out an extremely comfortable and wild laugh. Ha ha! Striking me with lightning? Only you can think of something like that. As his laughter fell, the lightning dissipated. Yichun, unharmed, appeared 10,000 meters in the sky. Yichun glanced at the empty sky, then reached out with his right hand and grabbed the god-slaying spear. Then he pointed it at the sky and pointed it at it. Continue. Boom, 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 boom. Then blood-red lightning bolts filled the sky and appeared directly above Yichun. Yichun's eyes lit up when he saw this. Then, without hesitation, he charged into the sky. In the next second, Yichun charged straight into the sea of blood-red lightning. God power devour the heavens and earth. After Yichun roared, a huge mouth that blotted out the sky instantly appeared and swallowed the blood-red lightning bolts that filled the sky. In the blink of an eye, the blood-red lightning bolts within 100 miles were swallowed by the huge mouth. Just as Yichun was about to devour the blood-red lightning bolts, the sky suddenly cleared up and returned to normal. Yichun smacked his lips when he saw this. Then, he pointed his middle finger at the sky again. So King Stingy. Continue, don't stop. The blood-red lightning bolts weren't ordinary lightning bolts. They were the red karmic fire lightning that Yichun had refined long ago. However, he hadn't been able to increase its power by much. If that wasn't the case, how could Yichun be so excited? How could he use the god power that he had obtained by sacrificing hundreds of years of his lifespan, devour the heavens and earth? Damn, this was the heavenly axiom of the newbie area. It was a free gift. How could Yichun not accept it? Of course, although it was a gift, it was actually the heavenly axiom of the newbie area that was angry at Yichun's rudeness. However, this wasn't important. What was important was that Yichun had made a huge profit this time. Chapter 1262. As soon as Yichun's words fell, the sky, which had already regained its calm, suddenly became even quieter. In fact, even the strong winds had become a lot weaker. Yichun, who was aware of this, let out a long sigh. Damn it, it was not provoked anymore. Yichun had reached the peak of the tribulation stage. Coupled with the abnormal physical body cast by the 9 revolutions' mysterious art, the abnormal primordial spirit condensed by the Hongmeng immortal qi, the innate golden body of merit endowed by the innate merit, and the huge amount of experience accumulated in his body that could allow Yichun to step into the golden immortal realm in one step, as well as various extremely tyrannical abilities. He was no longer afraid of the way of heaven in the newbie area. Otherwise, Yichun would not deliberately provoke the way of heaven in the newbie area. Unfortunately, Yichun was too abnormal. Even if the way of heaven in the newbie area wanted to kill Yichun, there was no way to do it. Otherwise, how could the way of heaven in the newbie area, after being angry, use the red thunder of hellfire to strike Yichun, and then retract without hesitation and ignore Yichun when it realized that it had suffered a loss? Thinking of this, Yichun moved his mind and then sensed the red thunder of hellfire that contained the power of destruction in his body. After confirming that the strength of the red thunder of hellfire had increased by at least 1,000 times, Yichun nodded with satisfaction. The harvest was not bad. At least, in the future, when I use the red thunder of hellfire, I can kill a celestial immortal with one strike. If I'm lucky, I can also kill a golden immortal with evil karma. Thinking of this, Yichun could not help but raise his eyebrows, and then looked at the Godslayer in his right hand. This time, when he went out to refine the Godslayer, not only did he succeed, but he also increased the power of the red thunder of hellfire by 1,000 times. Such an unexpected surprise. I like it. Wait, it seems that I have become the son of destiny of the earth. Yi Chun was busy deducing the purpose of the way of heaven in the newbie area before, and then he was busy swallowing the red thunder of hellfire. How could he have the time to pay attention to the system's prompt? Otherwise, Yi Chun wouldn't have thought of the system prompt of Earth Son of Providence until now. Damn it, I almost forgot about this. My identity as the Son of Providence on Earth seems to allow me to permanently obtain the providence of all the newbie zones on Earth. Thinking of this, Yi Chun's eyes lit up. That's not bad either. At least I don't have to worry about those foreign players slowly recovering their strength after I ascend to the Chaos World. Then, they'll take back the beginner's area that belongs to them. During the World War, Yi Chun went on a killing spree, killing the foreign players no less than 8 times. This caused the levels of the foreign players to drop to 0, and their strength dropped to the lowest possible level. Under such circumstances, the fate of the foreign players was basically set. They would die in the real world. After all, there were not only humans in the real world. There were also demons, magical beasts, and other tyrannical existences. With them around, in addition to the fact that the overall strength of the foreign players was pitifully low, it was basically a dream for the foreign players to continue surviving in the mutated real world. Of course, nothing was absolute. Even Yi Chun could not guarantee that all the foreign players would die. If there were really foreign players who were lucky enough to survive, then this foreign player would gradually recover his strength after Yi Chun ascended to the Chaos World. Then, he would regain control of the newbie zone that he belonged to. Once such a situation occurred, the providence that Yi Chun snatched from the newbie zone would automatically flow back to the newbie zone. In this way, Yi Chun would completely lose a portion of the providence, and there would be no way to remedy it. This was something that could not be helped. If there was anything to blame, it would be the Chaos World's laws of heaven and earth that prohibited all players from returning to the newbie zone after ascending. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that the providence flow back, which originally had a very small probability of occurring, had completely disappeared because Yi Chun had become the Son of Providence on Earth. Of course, the system notification didn't mention this. However, the problem was that if the foreign players wanted to take back control of the beginner's area that originally belonged to them and take back the heaven and earth fate that originally belonged to them, they had to kill Yi Chun. Would they be able to do that? It was simply impossible. Don't forget that the foreign players who had been abused miserably might not even be able to survive. How could they catch up to the advancement of the super abnormal player, Yi Chun? Therefore, from the moment Yi Chun officially became the Son of Providence on Earth, the providence that Yi Chun snatched from the newbie zone of the foreign game all became Yi Chun's. Thinking of this, Yi Chun could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then, with a thought, the Khanate cardinal treasure that Yi Chun had just completely refined, the Godslayer, instantly disappeared. After sensing the Godslayer that was suspended above his purple mansion primordial spirit, Yi Chun smiled slightly. Then, with a thought, the Khanate cardinal treasure, the grade 12 black lotus of destruction, instantly appeared in front of Yi Chun. The world is really fickle. When I was reborn, I never thought that the 2 great Khanate cardinal treasures of the demon ancestor Rahu, the Godslayer and the grade 12 black lotus of destruction, would both fall into my hands. Next, I'll refine the grade 12 black lotus of destruction and completely sever its connection with the demon ancestor Rahu. Thinking of this, Yi Chun's thoughts moved, and then he connected with a massive amount of Khanate merit in his body. In the next second, Yi Chun did not hesitate to strip out 1 billion Khanate merit from the massive amount of Khanate merit in his body, and then directly injected it into the grade 12 black lotus of destruction. When 1 billion innate merit points entered the grade 12 black lotus of annihilation, the originally quiet grade 12 black lotus of annihilation suddenly shone brightly, and the lotus leaves of the grade 12 black lotus of annihilation started to tremble and open. Seeing this, Yi Chun could not help but raise his eyebrows, and then he said, "Cooperate with me. Cooperate with me. Otherwise, I'll seal you away." The grade 12 Black Lotus of Destruction was accidentally obtained by Yi Chun when he was looking for the lunar primordial fire. If it were not for that accident, the grade 12 Black Lotus of Destruction would probably still be waiting for Rahu's resurrection. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Yi Chun, who had the Great Path Immortal Foundation, had a strong suppressive effect on the grade 12 Black Lotus of Destruction. As a result, the grade 12 Black Lotus of Destruction was extremely resistant to Yi Chun and was unwilling to recognize Yi Chun as its master. At that time, if it were not for Yi Chun's threats and Godslayer's persuasion, the grade 12 Black Lotus of Destruction would not have recognized Yi Chun as its master. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that the grade 12 Black Lotus of Destruction that had recognized Yi Chun as its master would subconsciously resist being completely refined even if it did not disobey Yi Chun's orders. It cannot be helped. Yi Chun had the Great Path Immortal Foundation, which could automatically burn all negative energy within a radius of 10,000 miles. It was completely at odds with the grade 12 Black Lotus of Destruction. It was precisely because Yi Chun was very clear about this that he deliberately scared it before refining the grade 12 Black Lotus of Destruction. Chapter 1263. As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, the Black Lotus of Destruction shuddered and sent an aggrieved thought to Yi Chun. Noticing this, Yi Chun couldn't help but smile. Then, he said, "After I ascend to the Eldritch world, I should be able to become a golden immortal. At that time, I will find a way to control the Great Tao Immortal Platform's ability to burn negative energy. You don't have to worry too much." As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, an extremely happy thought came from the grade 12 Black Lotus of Annihilation. Then, the grade 12 Black Lotus of Annihilation fully bloomed. Seeing this, Yi Chun nodded with satisfaction. Then he sat cross-legged 10,000 meters in the air and entered the refining state in the blink of an eye. At this moment, a mysterious and inexplicable aura erupted from Yi Chun's body and spread out. At the same time, black ripples full of evil aura emerged from the Black Lotus of Destruction and rapidly flew out layer by layer. Luoyang, Imperial Palace. General, this is the Empress Palace. You can't go in. Seeing Dongzhuo swagger to the entrance of the Empress Palace, the palace maid's face turned pale, and she bowed to Dongzhuo. Hearing this, Dongzhuo glanced at the little palace maid and then grabbed her by the collar. Rip! More than half of the little palace maid's clothes were torn off. The little palace maid screamed in horror. Just as the little palace maid covered her body in panic, Dongzhuo's big fat hand grabbed her by the neck and threw her behind him. "She's your reward." "Thank you, my lord." After Dongzhuo's family guards reached out to catch the frightened little palace maid, they smiled in unison and bowed to Dongzhuo in a loud voice. Hearing this, Dongzhuo laughed and pushed open the door of the Empress Palace. At this moment, Empress He, who was sitting on a chair in the main hall, was directly exposed to Dongzhuo's sight. Seeing Empress He's appearance, Dongzhuo's eyes suddenly widened, revealing a strange look. Just as Dongzhuo was looking at Empress He rudely, Empress He's personal maid opened her eyes wide and shouted, "What are you doing? How dare you?" As soon as Empress He's personal maid finished speaking, Dongzhuo came back to his senses and narrowed his eyes. At this moment, Empress He, who had been silent all this time, suddenly looked at Dongzhuo and asked, "Dong Bingzhou, are you rebelling?" Dongzhuo was the commander of the army and the governor of Bing province. Otherwise, Empress He wouldn't have addressed Dongzhuo as Dong Bing province. As soon as Empress He finished speaking, Dongzhuo couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "The palace is in chaos tonight. I'm worried that the Empress will be harmed by evil people, so I came here personally to protect the Empress. Dong Bingzhou, you were able to arrive in time when the thieves were causing trouble. Your loyalty is commendable. However, I do not need Dong Bingzhou's protection." When Empress He heard this, she glanced at Dongzhuo and spoke in an incomparably calm manner. Hearing this, Dong Zhuo smiled frivolously and lifted his leg, wanting to enter the main hall. However, before he could take a step into the main hall, Empress He's voice was heard again. Dong Bingzhou, have you thought about what you have beaked will do to you when your foot lands on the ground? As soon as Empress He finished speaking, Dong Zhuo's body stiffened, and his foot froze in the middle of the main hall. Obviously, the words "you have beaked" frightened Dong Zhuo. Otherwise, Dong Zhuo wouldn't be like this. In fact, Dong Zhuo couldn't be blamed for being so scared. After all, Dong Zhuo had seen how ferocious and cruel Yi Chun, Prince Yu of Han, was with his own eyes. Most importantly, he had seen it during the Yellow Turban Rebellion and the invasion of the demon race. As for now, Dong Zhuo had no idea how powerful Yi Chun, Prince Yu of Han, was, and he couldn't guess it. But this was not important. What was important was that Dong Zhuo was very clear that there was only one person in the great Han Empire that he couldn't afford to offend, and that was Yu of Beach, Yi Chun. In fact, Dong Zhuo decided to lead the army to Luoyang because he had repeatedly confirmed the rumor that the Samsara city had been smashed by the giant palm, and that Yu of Beach, Yi Chun, had been summoned back to his sect by his master, and there had been no news of him since then. Otherwise, Dong Zhuo wouldn't have dared to lead the army to Luoyang. But now, what did he hear? Empress He actually said that Yu of Beach, Yi Chun, and it seemed that they had a close relationship. How could Dong Zhuo, who had sensed this, not be careful? Damn it. It didn't matter if he offended others, even the emperor. But if he offended Yu of Beach, Yi Chun, he would be in deep trouble. After all, Yu of Beach, Yi Chun, was a freak who could destroy a country as easily as breathing. After a short silence, Dong Zhuo slowly drew back his leg, looked at Empress He, and bowed, respectfully. Your Highness, hasn't Yi Yu of Gojoseon returned to his sect and ignored worldly affairs? It's true that Yu of Beach has returned to his sect, but are you sure you dare to step into this hall? Hearing this, Empress He calmly picked up the teacup on the table, took a sip of tea, and then looked at Dong Zhuo and asked, May I know the relationship between your Highness and Yu of Beach? Hearing this, Dong Zhuo took a deep look at Empress He, and then bowed carefully. Hearing this, Empress He chuckled and asked, Are you sure you want to know? Hearing this, Dong Zhuo's expression changed. At this moment, a little eunuch who had luckily survived Yuan Shao's attack suddenly walked up to Dong Zhuo and whispered something. After hearing this, Dong Zhuo's eyes suddenly shrank, and then he hurriedly bowed to Empress He and said, Sure, I don't dare. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Dong Zhuo hesitated for a while, and then he looked at Empress He and asked, Your Highness, Yu of Beach, Great Han, can't live without you. Zhuo, I want to know when Yu of Beach will return to Great Han. You ask me? Who should I ask? I also want to know what he means. Empress He glanced at the little eunuch who had tattled to Dong Zhuo, and then she said. Hearing this, Dong Zhuo nodded, and then he bowed to Empress He and said, In that case, Zhuo, I'll take my leave first. If your Highness has any orders, just call for me. Empress He waved her hand. Seeing this, Dong Zhuo bowed and took his leave, and then he gently closed the door of the palace. In the next second, Dong Zhuo grabbed the neck of the little eunuch who had tattled to him. Do you know the consequences of lying to me? Your Excellency, I wouldn't dare to lie to you. That night, I did follow the Empress to you of Beach's residence, the little eunuch hurriedly said. Hearing this, Li Ru, who had followed Dong Zhuo here, couldn't help but frown. At this moment, Dong Zhuo looked at Li Ru with a gloomy face and asked, Tell me, did we make the wrong move? Chapter 1264. As soon as Dong Zhuo finished speaking, Li Ru shook his head and bowed. Father-in-law, do not worry. In my opinion, as long as there are no special changes, Yi Yu of Gojoseon will not return to the Great Han Dynasty. Dong Zhuo frowned and asked Li Ru, What do you mean? When Li Ru heard this, he smiled and said, That's right. Father-in-law, the Samsara city was destroyed by the Immortal's palm. The Ghost King must have violated some kind of taboo, or even the rules of heaven, which led to heavenly punishment. That's why the Ghost King hurriedly left the Great Han dynasty and returned to his sect to seek refuge. At this point, Li Ru glanced at Dong Zhuo and continued. Of course, this alone is not enough to determine if you of Beech will reappear in the world. However, if we add in the fact that you of Beech, as the Emperor's son-in-law, passed away, it will be much easier to determine. Dong Zhuo's eyes suddenly opened wide when he heard this, and he asked, "You're saying that if Yi Yu of Gojoseon wasn't provoked by something, he would continue to hide in the sect and not interfere with the affairs of the world?" Hearing this, Li Ru smiled and nodded. "That's right, father-in-law. Although Yi Yu of Gojoseon is unparalleled in the world, he is not without limits. The heavens are Yi Yu of Gojoseon's limits. As long as father-in-law doesn't do anything to provoke Yi Yu of Gojoseon, Yi Yu of Gojoseon will never leave the sect." Dong Zhuo fell silent when he heard this. A few breaths later, Dong Zhuo looked at Li Ru and asked, "Li Ru, do you think Yi Yu of Gojoseon is already dead?" "Father-in-law, Yi Yu of Gojoseon is not dead. If Yi Yu of Gojoseon is dead, the yellow-turbaned soldiers subdued by Yi Yu of Gojoseon in Yuzhou can't still be peacefully farming." Li Ru hurriedly looked at Dong Zhuo and bowed. Dong Zhuo's expression changed when he heard this, but he quickly regained his composure. "Since Yu of Beech is not dead, I have to give him face. Father-in-law is wise." Li Ru immediately let out a sigh of relief and bowed to Dong Zhuo. Dong Zhuo let out a long sigh and said, "It's a pity. What a pity." Li Ru, he glanced at Dong Zhuo and then bowed. "Father-in-law, the overall situation is still uncertain. We need to grasp He Jin's troops as soon as possible." "You're right, but let's talk about this tomorrow. Let's go to His Majesty's palace and meet our little empress." Dong Zhuo nodded and said. Then, he rushed toward Liu Bian's palace excitedly. When Li Ru saw this, he opened his mouth but could not say anything. Of course, Li Ru did not dare to say anything. Dong Zhuo, who was in high spirits, did not like to listen to opposing opinions. Li Ru, who knew this, would not provoke Dong Zhuo. In the main hall where Empress He lived, Empress He's personal maidservant, who heard Dong Zhuo's departure, let out a sigh of relief. Then, she came to the side of the trembling Empress He and said softly, "Your Highness." When Empress He heard this, she took a deep breath and let out a long breath. Only then did Empress He calm down. In the next second, Empress He looked at her personal maidservant and said, "Empress He, call her Empress Dowager. Call me Empress Dowager. The late emperor has passed away, and Gojoseon Bian has ascended the throne. As his aunt, I should change the way I address you. Empress Dowager, Dong Zhuo has gone to His Majesty's palace. I'm afraid." Empress He's personal maidservant nodded and said. Empress He's right hand, which was gripping the armrest of the chair, tightened. However, she immediately leaned weakly against the chair. "Dong Zhuo is a wolf with wild ambitions. I want to eat his flesh and chew his bones. However, there is no army in Luoyang. What can I do? Empress Dowager, the great general has many troops. Why don't we?" Empress He's personal maidservant hesitated for a moment and then said. Empress He shook her head weakly and said, "It's useless. It's useless. Big Brother's troops are extremely prejudiced against me. Even if I personally appear, they might not listen to my orders. Moreover, the Imperial Palace is currently surrounded by Dong Zhuo's army. How are we supposed to leave?" "Empress Dowager, let me try." Empress He's personal maidservant bit her lips and said. Empress He shook her head and said, "You don't have to go. I've accepted my fate. Moreover, if you are discovered, you will anger Dong Zhuo. Then, Bien will be in danger." "But, Empress Dowager," Empress He's personal maidservant panicked when she heard this. However, before she could finish, Empress He interrupted her. "Liluo, I know you're loyal. However, I have to consider Bien-er's safety." "Yes, Empress Dowager." Empress He's personal maidservant Liluo's eyes reddened when she heard this. She lowered her head and replied. Empress He sighed deeply when she saw this. Then, she stood up and walked to the window to look at the night sky. "You of Beech, I'm still a virgin. Why can't you accept me? As soon as Empress He finished her words, her face turned red. At this moment, Empress He's eyes blurred. When her personal maid, Lilaw, saw this, her expression immediately changed. Then, she hurriedly went to Empress He's side and closed the window. Then, she helped Empress He, who had begun to carelessly touch her, to the bed and lay down. Not long after, Empress He made a strange sound. At this moment, the two soldiers who were ordered by Li Ru to monitor Empress He arrived. Then, they heard the strange sound coming from the main hall. After the two soldiers looked at each other, they both revealed a confused expression. They didn't understand why Empress He would make such a sound when there was clearly no man in her residence. After a short moment of confusion, one of the soldiers swallowed his saliva with difficulty and said, "Go and report to the Lord." "Why don't you go?" The other soldier's face darkened when he heard this. Then he shouted in a low voice, "Idiot, do you want to die? Did you forget what the military advisor told us to do?" The soldier who was reprimanded was stunned for a moment. Then he suddenly shivered. Gulp. The soldier who was scolded hurriedly nodded and replied, "Thank you, I'll go and report to the Lord." Rumble. The sound of thunder that shook the heavens and earth suddenly sounded. Then a bolt of lightning descended from the sky and struck the soldier who spoke first. Bang! The soldier who had spoken first was killed on the spot. The soldier who just took a step forward saw this, and his body stiffened. Then his eyes shrunk. In the next second, this soldier unhesitatingly knelt down in front of Empress He's main hall and said, "Lord you of Beach, please spare my life." Chapter 1265. Boom! Crack! Crack! The thunderous roar shook the heavens and earth once again. However, this time, the kneeling and begging soldiers were not struck by the lightning. Sensing that, the soldier immediately let out a sigh of relief. After that, he kowtowed 3 times to the palace. After kowtowing, he immediately got up and left without any hesitation. Lu Bian's palace. Dong! Dong Zhua! You! Let go of my empress! Lu Bian shouted with anger and helplessness as he watched Dong Zhua not only touch the young empress, but also take off half of her pants. Dong Zhua looked back at the pale Lu Bian and scolded, "Watch over there. Stay there and watch. I'll teach you how to be a qualified man, a qualified emperor." As soon as Dong Zhua finished speaking, he directly put the little empress, who was not covered much, on the ground and pulled back. When Lu Bian saw this, he burst into tears. At this moment, an inexplicably horrified voice suddenly rang out. "My lord, you of Beach is here." Dong Zhua, who had just moved his waist halfway forward and was about to attack the enemy, suddenly froze and stopped. While Dong Zhua's face was pale and his body was stiff, Li Ru, who had been waiting outside, grabbed the collar of the terrified soldier who came to report. "What did you say?" The moment Li Ru asked, the soldier in charge of monitoring Empress, he said with a pale face, "Military advisory. You have Beach is here. He's in Empress He's palace." As soon as the soldier finished speaking, Li Ru's expression changed, while Dong Zhua's face withered. At this moment, Lu Bian, who had also heard the soldier's words, had an inexplicably excited expression on his face. "Dong Zhua, my brother-in-law will kill you. He'll definitely kill you. No, he'll kill all 9 generations of your family." Dong Zhua, who was in a state of panic, had a ferocious look in his eyes when he heard this. In the next second, Dong Zhua grabbed the chair next to him and threw it at Lu Bian. Seeing this scene, Li Ru's face suddenly changed, and then he shouted in shock. He shouted, "Father-in-law, no." As soon as Li Ru finished speaking, Dong Zhua's chair smashed into Lu Bian's head. Bang! Lu Bian directly fell to the ground, and then a large amount of blood directly flowed out of Lu Bian's head. Dong Zhua was startled when he saw this. He wanted to teach Lu Bian a lesson, but he didn't want to kill Lu Bian, especially when Yi Chun, Prince Yu of Han, came to the palace and went to the main hall where Empress He was. Outside the door, Li Ru's face darkened when he saw this scene. At this moment, the little empress, who was not covered much, let out a scream. "Your Majesty!" Once the mournful and miserable scream was heard, the little empress immediately stood up and ferociously crashed into a pillar in the palace. With a bang, the little empress was killed on the spot. Dongzhu's expression immediately changed upon seeing this, and he glared at the soldier with a ferocious light in his eyes. "Are you sure that you of Beach came to the palace and went to Empress He's main hall?" The soldier who came to report the news suddenly shivered when he heard this, and then he hurriedly bowed and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Empress, he made a sound that only husband and wife would make when they were having intercourse. And he Sand, who was with me, was directly struck to death by lightning because he was eavesdropping. If I hadn't knelt and begged for mercy, I'm afraid. Shut up. Li Ru's eyes suddenly widened when he heard this, and then he roared. Clearly, Li Ru didn't want this soldier to continue speaking. Dongzhu took a deep breath and then exhaled deeply. In the next second, Dongzhu directly put on his pants and then looked at Li Ru. "Pass down the order. We are leaving Luoyang. Your Majesty, although rumor has it that Yi Yu of Gojoseon is all-knowing and can summon the wind and summon the rain, Yi Yu of Gojoseon didn't really appear in Empress He's main hall." Li Ru hurriedly bowed when he heard this. Dongzhu was slightly taken aback when he heard this, and then he looked at Li Ru and asked, "You mean?" Li Ru nodded affirmatively when he heard this, and then he said, "Based on Ru's understanding of Yi Yu of Gojoseon, if the man in Empress He's main hall is really Yi Yu of Gojoseon, this person who eavesdropped will definitely die. There's no way he can survive." Dongzhu's eyes suddenly widened when he heard this, and then he pulled out the long sword at his waist and stabbed the soldier who came to report the news to death. Dongzhu fiercely wiped the blood that had splattered on his face, and his eyes were spitting fire as he said, "Burn this place. Burn this place down, and then follow me to Empress He's hall. I want to see which bastard dared to steal my prize." "Yes, father-in-law." Li Ru nodded without hesitation when he heard this, and then he bowed. In the beginner's area of America, which had turned into ruins above Peanut Shield City, a huge black lotus suddenly soared into the sky, and then it completely bloomed in the sky. At the same time, Yi Chun, who was sitting cross-legged in the void, opened his eyes. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for completely refining the innate cardinal treasure, the grade 12 Black Lotus of Destruction. When the system's notification sounded, Yi Chun couldn't help but smile. Not bad. The grade 12 Black Lotus of Destruction has been completely refined by me. Now, even if Luo Ho revives, he can forget about getting the God Slayer and the Black Lotus of Destruction back from me. Thinking of this, Yi Chun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. At this moment, an inexplicable feeling suddenly appeared in Yi Chun's heart. This was from the Great Han Empire. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, a world announcement suddenly sounded. Ding! The Luoyang Imperial Palace is on fire. The Great Han Emperor Liu Bian and Empress Tang Ji have unfortunately perished in the fire. The world announcement was repeated 3 times in a row, and it instantly caused an uproar in the world channel. F*CK. F*CK. What's going on? Liu Bian and Tang Ji died just like that? Isn't this too fast? I'm also F*King curious. That damn fatty dong is what hasn't crippled Liu Bian yet. How did Liu Bian die? What's there to be puzzled about? Don't forget that the history of the Great Han Empire has been changed beyond recognition by Yi Yu of Gojoseon, and Dongzhu's rebellion has also begun. F*CK, that's true, but it still isn't right. Without Dongzhu crippling Liu Bian and going against the tide, would Cao Cao have come out and issued a statement calling for Dongzhu's return? Why do you care about this? Don't forget that Dongzhu's rebellion has already begun. That's the key. That's not what I care about. I just want to know why no mission has appeared, even though Dongzhu's rebellion has begun. F*CK. We're thinking the same thing. I'm also curious about this. The world channel was in an uproar as it was flooded with messages. Yi Chun took a look and frowned. What the F*CK is going on? Why didn't that bastard Dongzhuo dethrone Liu Bian and kill him instead? The players could ignore the fact that Liu Bian had died before being dethroned, but Yi Chen couldn't ignore it. This was because this was a turning point in history. If something went wrong, it could affect the direction of Dongzhuo's rebellion. This wasn't an outcome that Yi Chen wanted to see. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's mind moved, and the space in front of him instantly distorted. After glancing at the distorted space, Yi Chen stepped into it and disappeared. Above the imperial palace in Luoyang, space suddenly distorted, and then Yi Chen stepped out and appeared here. Boom! Crack! Crack! Suddenly, a thunderous roar resounded. Then, Yi Chen, who was hidden in the night sky, was revealed. When Yi Chen glanced at the hall where Liu Bian stayed, which was burning continuously, he immediately frowned. Damn, who was it that affected the course of history? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.